I've been a 911 dispatcher for almost 7 years. You'd think by now I'd be numb to panic, to screams, to silence. But some calls stay with you, like a stain that won't come out no matter how many times you scrub it. This one was different. It didn't just stay with me. It followed me. It started on a quiet Tuesday night, the kind where the air feels heavy, like it's waiting for something. The other dispatchers were talking quietly behind me, and the radios hummed with static. I remember sipping cold coffee, scrolling through the night log, petty theft, a noise complaint, a car accident on Route 12. Nothing unusual. Then the phone rang. Line 3. I clicked it without thinking, my voice on autopilot. 911, what's your emergency? There was static first, then breathing, soft, shaky, like a child trying not to cry. Hello, I said again. This is 911. Are you safe? A tiny voice answered. A girl. Couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. My mommy won't wake up. My pen froze midair. Okay, sweetheart, that's okay. Can you tell me your name? Emily. Her voice cracked, the word barely making it out. I typed quickly. Unresponsive adult, possible medical emergency. All right, Emily. I need you to stay on the phone with me. Okay? Can you tell me where you are? She sniffled. Home. I forced a calm tone. Good. What's your address, Emily? She hesitated. It's 23 Pine Hollow Road. I typed it in. Waited. The system blinked red. No results found. I tried again. Pine Hollow Road didn't exist. Emily, can you repeat that address for me? 23 Pine Hollow Road, she whispered. Please come. Mommy's cold. Something in her voice twisted my stomach. Not the fear, but the way she said cold. Like she didn't understand what it meant yet, but knew it was wrong. I turned to my partner. Dave, can you check Pine Hollow Road in the map archives? He frowned. Never heard of it. But he started typing. Emily, I said softly, can you tell me what town you're in? Same one as you, she said. Her words were strange. Too sure. Do you know the name of your town, honey? Silence. Then you know it. I glanced at the screen. Still nothing. Dave shook his head. There's no Pine Hollow Road in the county. Closest is Pine Ridge. Emily, I said, is there a street sign outside your house? Maybe you can look out the window. A pause. I heard faint movement, then the sound of floorboards creaking. No, she said. It's dark outside. The trees are moving. Her breathing quickened. Sweetheart, it's okay. Don't go outside. Can you tell me what happened to your mom? There was a rustle, and then her voice close to the phone. She was making dinner. Then she fell. I tried to wake her up, but her eyes are open. I swallowed hard. Emily, is your mom breathing? No. I typed faster, flagging nearby units even without a valid address. Do you have any neighbors you can go to? No. Her tone was flat now. It's just me and Mommy. Something about the way she said it. It wasn't fear anymore. It was confusion, or something older. Okay, Emily, I'm sending help, but I need to find you. Can you describe what your house looks like? She hesitated, then said, it's yellow, with a big tree in front, the one with the rope. My throat went dry. What kind of rope? Mommy said it was for the tire swing. A pause. But there's no tire anymore. Dave leaned over. Nothing on Pine Hollow or anything close. Try older records, I whispered. He gave me a look, but started digging through the old property archives. Emily, I said softly, do you see any cars nearby? Maybe a mailbox with numbers? She didn't answer. I heard her walking again, small footsteps echoing across wooden floors. Then a sound, soft, wet, dragging. I tensed. Emily, what was that? Her voice came out trembling. Mommy's moving. My blood went cold. Emily, listen to me carefully. I said, you need to get out of the house right now. I can't. Why not? She's in the doorway. Her breathing was ragged now, but there was something else behind it, like the phone was picking up 2 different rhythms of breath. Emily, does she see you? A tiny whimper. Then she's looking at me. I looked at Dave. who was staring at the monitor, pale. What? I mouthed. He pointed to the screen. Pine Hollow Road. There was one, but it had been removed from county records in 1997. Abandoned land. All the houses demolished after a fire. I turned back to the phone. Emily, sweetheart, how long have you lived there? A long time. How long? The line crackled. Then faintly, since before it burned, my stomach dropped. Emily, where's your dad? I don't have one. Her tone was wrong. Not sad, just factual. Empty. Dave whispered. What's going on? I shushed him. Emily, are you still there? Yes. Is your mom still in the doorway? Yes. Her breathing grew louder. She's smiling now. A low static has filled the line. It almost sounded like words, whispering through the noise. Emily, I need you to. The line went dead. I froze. The dial tone hummed in my ear. Dave asked what happened. I didn't answer. I just stared at the dark screen. The room felt colder. I called the number back. No ring. Just static. I tried again. This time, someone answered, but it wasn't a child. It was a woman's voice. Calm, older. You shouldn't have called here. My heart pounded. Ma'am, this is 911 dispatch. We received a call from this number about a medical emergency. She sighed, soft but heavy. You must be mistaken. There's no phone here. Her tone sent chills down my spine. Ma'am, can you please infer your address? The line was silent for a long moment. Then, there's no address. The line clicked off. I sat there staring at the receiver, the sound of static still ringing in my ears. Dave came over, looking at the logs. The call's not in the system, he said. What do you mean? He turned the monitor toward me. The entry field was blank. No time, no caller ID, no audio log. But I'd written it all down. Line 3, 11:42 p.m. The notes were still there in my handwriting. Maybe it glitched, Dave muttered, or maybe someone was pranking you. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I went home that night, but I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about her voice, the way she said, you know it, like she knew I was closer than I thought. The next day, I went to the county office, asked an old records clerk about Pine Hollow Road. He squinted at me. That place burned down almost 30 years ago. Whole family inside. My chest tightened. Do you know who they were? He nodded slowly. The Carsons. Husband, wife, and their little girl, Emily. He looked at me funny. Why are you asking? I didn't answer. That night, I couldn't stop myself. I looked up the old police report. It said the mother was found in the kitchen, collapsed by the stove. The daughter had tried to drag her to the door before she passed out from smoke inhalation. They said her hand was still clutching the phone. There was a picture attached, a blackened rotary phone melted into the wall. The number was the same one that had called me. I don't take night shifts anymore. Not after that. But sometimes when the office goes quiet and the lights flicker, I still hear that faint crackle in the headset drawer and a child's voice whispering, soft as dust, Mommy won't wake up. I didn't tell anyone about the call for 2 days. I told myself it was a bad dream or a prank or maybe stress finally catching up with me after too many night shifts. But deep down, I knew what I'd heard. That voice, that fear, that name, Emily. Even saying it in my head made me uneasy. I kept hearing her whisper, Mommy won't wake up, like it was stuck inside my ears, looping in the silence between real calls. When I got back to work Thursday night, I tried to bury it, typed my reports, listened to static, answered calls like normal, but the phone lines felt heavier, like something on the other end was waiting for me to pick up. At 9:13 p.m., an officer named Jensen came by my desk. He's one of those steady types. Been with the department longer than I've been alive. He leaned on the counter, tired eyes half hidden under his cap. You all right, Harper? He asked. You've been quiet lately. I shrugged. Just long nights. He nodded but didn't move. Heard you were asking about Pine Hollow Road. That froze me. Who told you that? Clerk from records. Said you were digging around old maps. He tilted his head. What's going on? I could have lied. But I was tired of feeling like I was going crazy. So I told him, not everything, just that I got a strange call from a kid claiming to live there. He frowned. That place burned in '97. Nothing left but rubble. I know, I said, but the call came through the dispatch line. I logged it. I even called back. Got a number? I opened my folder. It disappeared from the system, like it never existed. Jensen looked skeptical, but he didn't laugh. Instead, he said, "Send me the time of the call. I'll check cell tower data. If it pinged anywhere, we'll find it." That gave me a little hope. Maybe it was a cross signal or some freak technical thing. Anything but what it felt like. He left, and I spent the rest of my shift staring at the phone, half hoping it would ring again. It didn't. Not that night. The next morning, Jensen came back. He had a manila folder under his arm, his expression darker than usual. "Got something weird," he said, dropping the file on my desk. Inside was a printed map with a red circle drawn near the outskirts of town, a place long past the old mills and railroad tracks. "This is where the call pinged," he said. "Cell tower caught a signal for about 22 seconds before it vanished." "Where is that?" I asked. He looked at me. "Where Pine Hollow used to be." I felt my stomach twist. "That's impossible. There's nothing out there." He shrugged. "Wanted to check it out?" I didn't answer right away. Every logical part of me wanted to say no, to forget it, move on. But something in me, curiosity, guilt, I don't know, said yes. "Just let me know what you find." I said. That night was quiet again, until 11:47 p.m. The phone on line 3 rang. I froze. Same tone, same faint static hum under it. I stared at the blinking light, my heart hammering. When I finally picked up, my voice came out thin. 911, what's your emergency? But there was no breathing this time. No voice. Just the faint sound of something turning, like a rotary dial. Click, click, click. Then a long tone. It wasn't a person. It was a recording. A distorted voice repeating 3 sets of numbers. 41.0160. 74.2342. Midnight. Then the line went dead. I repeated the numbers over and over until they stuck in my head. Wrote them down, then ran to Jensen's desk. He was half asleep, boots on the table. I shook his shoulder. He blinked, annoyed. "What the hell, Harper?" "I got coordinates," I said, shoving the note toward him. "It came through the line. You need to trace it." He rubbed his eyes, reading the numbers, then frowned. "That's the same area, right where the call pinged." Within 10 minutes, 2 patrol cars were on their way. I stayed on the radio, listening to their updates. The first officer to report in was Peters. "Dispatch, we're near the old fire lot. Nothing but dirt and concrete." "Copy that," I said. "You're close to the coordinates?" "About 20 meters, he said. "Looks like old foundations. Half buried." Then static, followed by Jensen's voice over the channel. "Dispatch, we're on site. There's... Hold on. You hearing that?" I turned up the volume. A faint ringing sound echoed to the background of his transmission. "Yeah, I hear it," Peter said. "You got a phone on you?" "No," Jensen replied. "That's not coming from me." The sound grew louder over the radio, unmistakable now. A phone ringing. The old kind. Rotary, metallic, shrill. "Jesus," Peters muttered. "It's coming from the rubble." I gripped the mic. "Can you locate it?" They didn't answer right away. I could hear them walking, crunching over glass and gravel. Then Jensen's voice quieter. "Found something. Looks like a piece of wiring. Maybe from an old line." The ringing grew louder, sharper, like it was right beside the mic. "Jensen?" I said. He didn't respond. Then a new sound came through. A soft voice, barely above a whisper. "Hello." It wasn't Jensen. It was a child. "Who's there?" Peters asked. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then the same voice, trembling, small. "Mommy won't wake up." My hand went numb around the radio. Peters swore under his breath. "What the..." Static swallowed the rest. "Jensen? Peters? Respond." Nothing. The line hissed for nearly a full minute before cutting out completely. They both came back an hour later, pale and shaken. Peters refused to talk much, but Jensen stayed behind. He sat across from me, staring at the map, his hands trembling slightly. "You heard it too, didn't you?" I asked. He nodded. We dug through what's left. Found a buried section of phone cable, cut clean through. No power, no connection. But that ringing, he trailed off. "What did you hear exactly?" He took off his cap, rubbed his face. It wasn't just ringing. It changed, like it was picking up interference, but the pattern, it sounded like someone dialing. Dialing what? He met my eyes. This number. My breath caught. The dispatch line? He nodded. We sat there in silence. The room felt colder again, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. Then Jensen reached into his pocket and set something on the desk. It was a small piece of black plastic. Melted, curved slightly, edges worn. "Found this in the rubble," he said. "Thought it might be part of a phone casing." When I picked it up, the texture made me flinch. It wasn't just melted plastic. It was fused with something grainy like soot or ash. And faintly on the inner edge, I could see numbers etched into it. 911. I dropped it. Jensen didn't pick it up. He just stared at it, then stood. "I don't know what you got yourself into, Harper," he said quietly. "But whatever that call was, it wasn't human." He left after that. Didn't file a report. Didn't come back on night shift again. For the next few nights, I kept my phone off. Refused to answer any calls I didn't recognize. But the silence was worse. I'd wake up at odd hours, swearing I heard a faint ring somewhere in the house. Always distant. Always just out of reach. Yesterday morning, I found something on my porch. A small piece of paper folded in half. No footprints. No envelope. Just a note. Inside were 3 sets of numbers written in shaky handwriting. The same coordinates. And under them, a single sentence. "You know it." The words made me sick. Because that's exactly what the girl said on the first call. "You know it. I don't know what's out there in those woods. Maybe some leftover echo of that night. Or maybe something pretending to be her. But whatever it is, it knows how to reach me. Sometimes, when the radio hums just right and the static deepens, I swear I hear a faint sound beneath it. A soft rotary click, like an old line coming alive. I keep telling myself not to pick it up. But one of these nights, I know I will. I didn't sleep much after the coordinates. Every sound at night made me flinch. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge, even the faint buzz of the streetlight outside. They all felt wrong somehow, like the quiet wasn't empty anymore. For days, I tried to convince myself to move on. The department told me to take time off, and I did. But that didn't help, because no matter where I went, I couldn't stop hearing that sound. That faint, steady ringing. Not loud, just present, like it lived somewhere behind my thoughts. On my 4th day off, I went back to the dispatch center, not because I was ready, but because I needed to prove something to myself. I needed to hear the recording. Every call that comes through is recorded automatically. Even ones that vanish from a log usually leave a trace in the raw data system. If I could hear the unknown call again, maybe I'd find an explanation. Something logical. Something human. I told the tech on duty, Frank, that I was following up on an unresolved case. He didn't ask questions. Just pointed me to the archive room in the back. The room smelled like burnt dust and coal metal. Rows of black servers hummed in the dark, blinking green lights like slow, steady heartbeats. Frank logged me in, handed me headphones, and said, "Don't crash the system." I waited for the door to close before I typed in the timestamp. October 14th, 11:42 p.m. The night I spoke to Emily. At first, there was nothing. Then static. Then her voice. My mommy won't wake up. Hearing it again made my throat tighten. It wasn't like remembering. It was like reliving it. I listened to the entire call. Every breath, every tremor. It was exactly how I remembered it. Until the end. The moment the line went dead, I heard something I hadn't before. Just beneath the static. A faint echo. A whispering sound that didn't belong. I turned up the volume, and my blood ran cold. It was me, my own voice, faint but clear, speaking to the static. Help me? I froze, rewound it, played it again. Same thing, right after the little girl stopped speaking. My voice. Help me? I sat there for a long time, staring at the waveform on the screen, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was interference. Maybe the system glitched and picked up another channel. I kept telling myself that, over and over. But I couldn't stop thinking, how would it have my voice? There were no open mics that night, no recorded overlap. I was the one on the call, and I never said those words. I listened again, this time from the start. Static, breathing, the girl's voice trembling. Then, around the halfway mark, something else. Tiny sounds, like whispers buried deep under the recording. I turned the gain all the way up until the noise filled my headphones. At first, I couldn't make out the words. But as I listened closer, I realized they weren't words at all. They were echoes, a replay of earlier parts of the call, overlapping themselves. The same lines repeated, distorted, shuffled out of order. Where are you? Mommy's cold. She's looking at me. But every time one of those phrases played, my own voice followed right after. Faint, desperate. Always the same line. Help me. It didn't sound like me on the night of the call. It sounded like me now. Tired, shaken, afraid. I took off the headphones, shaking, and looked at the clock. An hour had passed. I didn't even remember pressing play again. When I left the archive room, Frank was gone. The dispatch floor was empty too. Everyone must have gone home. Only the emergency lights were on, glowing a dull red over the consoles. The phone sat silent, their green indicators blinking in rhythm with my heartbeat. I tried to steady my breathing, tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. But as I turned toward the exit, one of the phones rang. Line 3. I froze. The sound was sharp in the quiet. It rang once, twice, then stopped. Silence. Then another line lit up. Line 5. One ring. Then another. Then nothing. Then another line. It was like the system was testing me, daring me to answer. I stared at the board. Every instinct told me to walk away, but I picked up the receiver. 911. I said quietly. No voice answered. Just static. And under it, the same thing I'd heard on the recording. My own voice. Help me. Then the line cut out. The silence that followed didn't feel like silence anymore. It felt like something listening. I called Jensen the next morning. He didn't answer at first, then texted me an hour later. Don't call this number again. I tried anyway. Straight to voicemail. I went by the station that afternoon, but his locker was empty. They said he took leave suddenly. No explanation. I wanted to drop it, but I couldn't, because that night when I opened my laptop, I found a new audio file in my downloads. It was titled playback_3.wave. I hadn't downloaded it. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. The file began with the sound of an open line. Then, faintly, my voice again. 911, what's your emergency? Except, I wasn't speaking. It was a recording of me from a different call. I recognized the tone, the way I said the words, but not the rest of it, because the voice that answered wasn't a child. It was me. Please, the other me said, you have to listen. I felt my heart stop. Who is this? My recorded voice asked. The other me, the one on the call, sounded terrified. They're in the lines, she said. They hear everything. Every call, every voice. They never hang up. Static swelled, drowning out the rest. Then, faintly, don't pick up anymore. The audio ended with that same mechanical ring. Once, twice, then silence. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't go to work either. I sat in my living room, staring at my phone, watching the seconds tick by. Every 30 minutes, I'd hear the faint buzz of a signal, like an incoming call that never connected. At 2:37 a.m., my landline rang. I didn't even know it was still connected. I picked it up with shaking hands. No one spoke, but the sound of my own voice came through again. Help me. I slammed it down, unplugged the line, sat there breathing hard. But even without power, the faint hum continued, that steady pulse of a live connection. That was when I realized it wasn't coming from a phone. It was coming from inside the walls, a low electrical ring, deep and hollow, like a current moving just beneath the surface. I walked from room to room, pressing my ear to the plaster. Everywhere I listened, the sound followed, soft, rhythmic, like something tracing me through the wires. The next morning, I went back to the station to turn in my resignation. Frank wasn't there. Neither was the supervisor. The only person in the building was a maintenance tech replacing one of the switchboards. He nodded as I walked in. "System's been glitching bad lately," he said. "Phones calling each other at night. Empty lines. Loops creepy stuff." I tried to act casual. "What kind of loops?" He shrugged. "Calls playing back on their own. Same audio repeating from different consoles. Dispatchers hearing their own voices." I froze. He chuckled nervously. "Guess the system's haunted, huh?" I didn't laugh. Instead, I asked him to check something for me. The most recent playback from my console, line 3. He plugged in his tablet, typed a few commands, then frowned. "There's an active recording linked to your console." "That's impossible," I said. "I haven't logged in." He looked at me. "Well, something's still recording." He clicked play. Static. Then my voice. 911, what's your emergency?" I took a step back. "That's not live, right?" He shook his head slowly. "No, that's coming from the archive feed." "Can you stop it?" I asked. He started typing, but the audio kept going. "Where are you?" my recorded voice said. Then, faintly, another voice. "Mine again. Help me?" He froze. "Is that?" The sound distorted, turning sharp, like the speaker was right against my ear. The second he screamed, "Help me!" the maintenance tech ripped out the headset cable. The sound stopped instantly. The air in the room felt thick, buzzing. He looked at me, pale. "What the hell was that?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. It wasn't just playback. It was something using the playback, like it had learned the sound of my voice, and now it was trying to reach me through it. I quit that same day. I changed my number, moved to a new apartment. But every night, around the same time, the quiet hum returns. Sometimes faint, sometimes close, and once in a while, when I close my eyes, I hear it perfectly, my own voice whispering through the static. "Help me." It started with static, not the kind that bursts through the speakers when a storm hits, but the soft kind, quiet, steady, almost like breathing if you listen long enough. At first, I didn't think much of it. Glitches happen all the time. But after the third night, it started to feel like someone was trying to talk through it. My name's Harper. I've been a 911 dispatcher for 6 years now. Most nights are routine, accidents, noise complaints, the occasional drunk calling about ghosts in their backyard. You learn to tune out the strange stuff. But lately, the strange have been tuning into me. The first static call came around 2:14 a.m. It was a slow night, and the office was almost empty. I remember sipping bad coffee, the kind that tastes burnt no matter how much sugar you drown in. When line 2 lit up, 911, I said, "What's your emergency?" Static. "Hello? Can you hear me?" Nothing. Just that soft hiss, like the sound a TV makes when the signal dies. "Sir? Ma'am? If you can hear me, please say something." Still nothing. I logged the call, labeled it as a hang-up, and moved on. Happens more than people think. Someone dials by mistake or gets cold feet, but there was something about the sound. It wasn't random. It had a rhythm, like it was alive. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time, same line, static. 911, what's your emergency? Nothing. I listened closer, holding my breath. That's when I realized it wasn't pure static this time. There was something underneath it. A faint breathing. Slow, uneven, not mechanical, not like feedback. It sounded human. "Hello?" I said again. "Are you hurt? Can you speak?" The breathing grew louder, closer. Then it stopped. The line clicked dead. I sat there, staring at the receiver, my own reflection trembling in the dark glass of the monitor. The next day, I checked the call log. There was no entry for that call. It's not supposed to be possible. Every single call that comes through gets recorded automatically, even missed dials. But that one wasn't there. I told my supervisor. He brushed it off. Probably a glitch in the system. You know how old our setup is. But glitches don't breathe. By the end of that week, it had happened 4 more times. Always the same. 2:14 a.m. Line 2. Static. Breathing. Sometimes it sounded close, like the caller was right against a microphone. Sometimes distant, like they were standing in a huge empty room. Every time, I'd stay on the line until it cut out. And every time, I'd feel something. Not fear exactly, but that crawling awareness you get when you realize you're not alone. I started having trouble sleeping. I'd wake up at 2:14 without meaning to, just lying there, waiting for my phone to ring. It never did. The calls only came when I was on shift. One night, curiosity got the better of me. When the static call came through again, I stayed quiet. Didn't say 911. Didn't speak at all. I just listened. The static was faint, soft, almost soothing. Then I heard it. The breathing. In. Out. Slow. Careful. Like someone was trying to match my rhythm. I leaned closer to the headset. My heart was racing, but I couldn't pull away. Then, between the breaths, a sound, a whisper, too low to understand at first. I turned up the volume. Hear me? That's what it said. I froze. Who is this? No answer. Just breathing. Do you need help? The whisper came again, a little louder this time. Can you hear me? My mouth went dry. Yes, I said quietly. I can hear you. The static swelled, filling my headset, growing louder and sharper. Then, in a voice that didn't sound like a whisper anymore, you shouldn't. And the line went dead. I don't scare easily. I've heard people scream for their lives, beg for help through sirens and gunshots. You build walls in this job. But that call, that voice, it slipped through every wall I had. I told myself it was feedback, some radio signal bouncing through old wiring. But the next night, when I logged in, something strange happened. The timestamp on my console glitched. For a second, it flickered to 2:14 before correcting itself back to 8:03. I laughed it off, pretended not to notice. But when the real 2:14 came and line 2 lit up again, I didn't answer right away. I let it ring. The light blinked slowly, steady as a heartbeat. When it finally stopped, I thought that was it. Then line 1 rang. Same tone, same rhythm. I picked up without thinking. 911, what's your emergency? Static. Only this time it wasn't the same kind. This was deeper, layered, like a dozen voices buried under the noise. I could almost hear them moving. Hello? I whispered. A faint echo answered. Hello? It was me. My own voice. I yanked off the headset and stared at the blinking console, heart hammering. The light stayed on. Even though I wasn't wearing a headset, I could still hear the static, faint but clear, leaking through the speakers. I reached out and pressed the end call button. It didn't stop. The only way to silence it was to unplug the line completely. When I did, the room went dead quiet. Too quiet. I didn't tell anyone after that. What could I say? That the phone was talking back in my voice? But from then on, I started noticing small things. The temperature dropped near my desk. The faint hum that came from the wires, even when the system was off. And every time I sat down to start a shift, the screen would flicker just once to show a frozen timestamp. 2:14 a.m. It was like the system remembered before I did. A week later, the call stopped. No static, no breathing, nothing. For a while, I thought it was over. Then one night, as I was leaving, I heard a faint noise coming from the break room. The old landline on the wall, the one that hadn't worked in years, was ringing. Just one short ring. I walked over slowly, the sound echoing down the empty hall. The phone was covered in dust. The cord tangled, half detached from the wall. I picked up the receiver. Static, then a faint breath. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, holding it to my ear. Then, the whisper again. Can you hear me? I felt something cold brush my arm. A draft? Maybe, or maybe not. I whispered back, yes. The static hissed louder like a sigh. Then my own voice spoke through it. You shouldn't. The line clicked dead. I set the receiver down, my hands shaking. As I turned to leave, I noticed a wall clock above the door. The second hand wasn't moving. It was stuck, frozen at 2:14. I've tried to ignore it since then. Tried to convince myself it's all in my head. But last night when I got home, I found something strange. My personal phone, the one no one ever calls, had a missed call notification. No number, just a timestamp. 2:14 a.m. When I played the voicemail, all I heard was static, and faintly under it, the sound of breathing. It took me a while to see the pattern. Maybe I didn't want to see it, because once you notice something like that, it never leaves you alone again. For weeks, the static calls kept coming. Same sound, same hollow breathing. But one night, when I checked the call logs, the real ones, not the glitchy records on my console, I noticed something strange. Every single one of them came in at the exact same time, 3:11 a.m., not 3:10, not 3:12, always 3:11. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Dispatchers see coincidences all the time, but I kept scrolling to the data, and there it was again and again, 3:11, and that number, it meant something. I just couldn't place it yet. The next night, I brought it up to Greg. He's one of the senior operators. Been here longer than anyone else. Gray hair, heavy smoker. The kind of guy who's seen everything twice and stopped caring the first time. "Hey," I said, pulling up the call list on my monitor. "You ever notice how sometimes we get repeat calls at the same time every night?" He didn't even look up from his coffee. "What time?" 3:11. That got his attention. He froze, the mug halfway to his mouth. For a second, he didn't say anything, just stared at me. Then he said quietly, "You shouldn't joke about that." "I'm not joking." He set the mug down. "You're new enough you probably didn't hear. About 5 years back, we had an operator named Maggie. Night shift. She died right here at her desk. Heart attack." I blinked. "At her desk?" "Yep." Guess what time it was? My throat tightened. 3:11. He nodded once. "Yeah, that's the time her line went dead." I didn't know what to say. The air felt different after that. Heavier. Even the lights above us seemed dimmer somehow. Greg gave me this look. The kind old cops give when they're about to tell you something they probably shouldn't. He leaned back in his chair and lowered his voice. "Thing is," he said, "that night Maggie was on a call. Nobody knows who it was with. The audio was all static. They tried to recover it, but the file corrupted. Only thing they could pull out was her breathing. And right before it cuts off, she says something." "What did she say?" He hesitated. "She said, 'I can hear it.' Then the line went dead." I felt a chill crawl down my neck. Did they ever find anything? Like, was it a prank call or... Greg shook his head. No number, no trace, nothing. Then he gave a dry laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Thing about this job, Harper, sometimes the line talks back. Best you can do is not listen too hard." I couldn't stop thinking about Maggie after that. I even looked her up later, but there wasn't much. A small obituary. A picture. Smiling woman, maybe late 30s. Short blonde hair. She looked kind. For some reason, that made it worse. The next shift, I sat down at my console and just stared at the clock. 2:59. I told myself I wouldn't look at it again. I didn't want to give that number any power. But as the minutes crawled by, my eyes kept flicking toward it. 3:09, 3:10, then 3:11. Line 2 blinked. I froze. It was her line, the same one Maggie used. They'd never reassigned it. Said it was retired. Except that night it wasn't. The console lit up like someone was calling from inside the system. No number, no ID, just a blinking green light, and the soft sound of static spilling through the headset. My hand was shaking when I picked it up. 911, I said softly. "What's your emergency?" Static, then breathing, slow, ragged, familiar. "Hello." I tried again. "Is anyone there?" A faint whisper came through. So faint I almost thought I imagined it. "Can you hear it?" I froze. My heart was pounding, my palms slick. "Who is this?" I asked No answer, just the breathing, slower now, like the person on the other end was getting tired. Then the line clicked off. I stared at the screen. The call hadn't been logged. Again, after that, I started keeping a notebook. Every time the call came, I wrote down the exact second, the static pattern, everything I could hear. Sometimes it sounded like someone walking, slow steps under the noise. Other times, it was just breathing. But once I swear I heard a voice behind the static. Not whispering, singing, just a few words. A melody that didn't make sense but still stuck in my head long after the line went dead. That night, I went home and tried to sleep. But at 3:11 a.m., I woke up without an alarm, without reason, just wide awake. The house was silent. Then, from the corner of the room, my phone screen lit up for a split second. No ring, no notification, just a flicker of light and the time, 3:11. I told myself it was exhaustion, that I was connecting dots that weren't there. But the next day, Greg didn't show up. He never missed shifts. When I called his phone, it rang once, then static. The hairs on my arm stood up. I slammed the phone down and called the supervisor instead. He sounded calm, too calm. Greg's out for medical leave, he said. Since when? Since this morning. What happened? He paused. Heart complications. My stomach turned. What time? Another pause. Then quietly, around 3:11. After that, the calls changed. They didn't just come through my headset anymore. They came through all the lines. Other dispatchers started complaining about brief static, echoes of breathing. The supervisor said it was just interference. The system was being updated. But deep down, we all knew that wasn't it. Every time the clock hit 3:11, you could feel it in the room. The air would shift. The monitors would hum. The lights flicker, like something was passing through us. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses, just for a second, of a shadow near Maggie's old station. I'd turn, and there'd be nothing there. But the air always smelled faintly of cigarettes. Greg's brand. I stopped sleeping entirely. The sound of static haunted me, even when I wasn't at work. In the shower, in traffic, at the grocery store, I'd hear it, faint and distant, like it was following me. Then one night, during a shift, I decided to test it. When 3:11 came, I didn't answer the call. I just let it ring. The light blinked and blinked, and then it stopped. I let out a shaky breath, and that's when my headset turned on by itself. Static. Then a voice, slow, broken. You missed it. I ripped the headset off, hard hammering. But even without it, I could still hear the whisper, faint like it was inside my head. You missed it. After that night, I found myself drawn to Maggie's old desk. It's in the corner, half covered by files now. No one sits there anymore. I brushed some dust off the keyboard, and the monitor flickered to life. No one had powered it in years. Yet the screen glowed faint blue, showing only one thing. The time, 3:11. Then, across the bottom of the screen, words began to appear, one letter at a time. Can you hear it? I backed away so fast I hit my own chair. The screen went black. I haven't told anyone about that. If I do, they'll say I'm tired, that it's the job. Maybe they're right. Maybe the late nights and the voices blend together until you start hearing what you expect to hear. But last night, when I got home, my house phone, the one I never use, rang once. When I checked the caller ID, the number was blank. Only the timestamp showed. 3:11 a.m. I didn't answer. But I can still hear it. Faint, steady, like static breathing through the walls. And sometimes, if I listen closely, I swear I hear a woman's voice beneath it. Soft, calm, familiar. Can you hear it? I used to think static was just noise, the leftover hum between real sounds. Now I know better. Static is never empty. It's what's left when something is trying to speak, but can't. After the last few nights, I started hearing it everywhere, not just during shifts in the walls of my apartment. The faintness behind the TV, the low buzz that filled the silence when everything else went quiet. It followed me. At first, I told myself it was just stress. My sleep schedule was wrecked. I was barely eating, but deep down I knew the static had learned my name. The night it spoke, I remember the air feeling heavier than usual. It was past midnight, and the station was quiet, that strange kind of quiet that makes you afraid to move too much. The others were gone. I had volunteered to stay late, to organize the logs. But really, I wanted to be there when 311 came. I needed to hear it again, not out of curiosity anymore, out of something darker. It felt personal now. The clock ticked. 3:09, 3:10. My palms were sweaty against the desk. I didn't blink, and right on time. Line 2 lit up. I didn't even hesitate this time. I put on the headset. 911. I said, my voice trembling. What's your emergency? Static. Soft, steady. It almost sounded calm tonight, like waves pulling back from shore. Hello? I asked quietly. For a moment, it was just the hiss, then a faint shift, like someone adjusting the microphone on the other end, and then I heard it. Answer me this time. I froze. It was a voice, not distorted, not imagined. A real human voice buried under the static. Female, low, calm, like she was standing right behind me. Who is this? I whispered. The voice came again, almost clearer now. Answer me this time. I swallowed hard. Answer you? I don't understand. The static grew louder, sharper. The air around me felt like it was vibrating. Then, through the noise, can you hear it? My blood ran cold. It was the same phrase Greg told me Maggie said before she died. I ripped the headset off, but the sound didn't stop. It was coming from the speakers now, from every console around me, a dozen headsets humming with the same breathy static, like a chorus of whispering voices. I stood up, my chair sliding back across the floor. Stop, I muttered, pressing random buttons on the console. Just stop. But the more I tried, the louder it got, and then, for one brief second, all the noise cut off. Silence. Then, clear as day, through the empty room, the voice said, behind you. I turned. There was no one there. Just the empty dispatch floor, the glow of screens, and the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I backed away slowly, the headset still dangling from the cord like a dead limb. When I looked down at the monitor, I saw something that made my stomach twist. A new call had logged automatically, but not to any number. The caller ID field was filled with my own name, Harper. I didn't sleep that night. I went home shaking, every shadow in my apartment looking alive. I unplugged every device I owned, the TV, the router, even the alarm clock. But still, when the room went quiet enough, I could hear it. Faint static, right at the edge of hearing, like someone whispering through a wall. I turned on the faucet, just to drown it out. Didn't work. The running water made it worse. It started to sound like the voice was under it, murmuring things I couldn't quite make out. Answer me this time. Don't hang up, please. I sat on the bathroom floor until the sun came up, hands clamped over my ears. I tried to tell myself I was losing it, that maybe Maggie's story got into my head. Maybe I was so sleep-deprived I was hallucinating sound. But the next day, when I got to work, everyone was staring at me. One of the other dispatchers, Mia, pulled me aside. Did you leave the recorders on last night? She asked. I frowned. No. Why? She hesitated, then handed me her headset, because they'd picked something up. I didn't want to listen. Every part of me screamed not to, but I did. The recording started with faint static, then the sound of my voice. 911, what's your emergency? Then a pause, and the voice, soft, low, identical to what I heard the night before, said, answer me this time. Then silence, and faintly, in the background, breathing. But it wasn't mine. It was faster, uneven, terrified. And then I heard something that made my hands go numb. It was my voice again, whispering, behind you. I slammed the headset down and just stared at the screen. Mia looked at me like she was waiting for an explanation, but I had none. I couldn't tell her that I'd already heard that exact thing live, that somehow it was on the recording before it ever happened. She asked if I was okay. I said I was, but I wasn't, because now the voice wasn't content with the phone lines anymore. It had started to slip through everything else. The next few nights were worse. Even when I wasn't at work, I could feel it waiting. Sometimes my phone would buzz once, exactly at 3:11, but there'd be no missed call. Sometimes my radio would hum with faint static, even when it was off. And one night, as I was driving home, my car stereo turned on by itself. The same voice came through. Answer me this time. I nearly crashed. When I pulled over and shut the car off, I sat there in silence for a full minute, until my phone, still in the passenger seat, started playing the same sound. Static, then whispering. I didn't touch it. I just drove home with the radio off, the silence stretching so thin it hurt. I started digging after that. Old call records, archive reports, anything connected to Maggie. Most of it was gone, wiped, but one entry survived. A report from the night she died. At exactly 3:11 a.m., her system recorded an unidentified inbound call. The note said, audio distortion, possible loopback. Voice detected, female. Phrase unclear, possibly answer me this time. The same words. That was 5 years ago. And somehow, the same call was reaching me. I couldn't stop thinking. What if it was her? What if Maggie never left a line? What if something kept her voice trapped between frequencies, replaying over and over, looking for someone to answer? That night, I decided to try. When the clock hit 3:11, I put the headset on and said, quietly, I'm here. I'm listening. For a moment, only static. Then the voice, gentle, almost relieved. You answered. My throat tightened. Who are you? You know me. The static thinned out, like fog clearing just enough to see a shape through it. I could hear faint crying now. A woman. Then words, soft, broken. They never heard me. Maggie, I whispered. The static pulsed. Then came the voice again, but it wasn't just one now. Dozens, all whispering together. Overlapping, rising to the static like a tide. Answer me this time. Please, don't hang up. Can you hear it? I tried to pull the headset off, but the line screeched, a high-pitched noise that made my head spin. And under it, buried deep in the distortion, I heard something that froze me completely. My own voice. Help me? When I finally tore the headset off, my nose was bleeding. The console lights were flashing red. Multiple inbound calls, all from blank numbers. Every one of them time-stamped. 3:11 a.m. The calls went on for hours, one after another. Static, breathing whispers, voices overlapping like waves, all saying the same thing. Answer me this time. I don't work there anymore. I quit a week later. But sometimes when I'm home alone, I still hear it. Faint, like it's bleeding through from another place. The static, the breathing, and that same voice. I stopped unplugging things. Doesn't matter anymore. It finds its way through anyway. Last night, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. I didn't check it right away. I already knew what time it was. 3:11 a.m. When I finally looked, there was a voicemail. No number, no message, just sound. I pressed play. Static. Then, softly, my own voice whispering back at me. Answer me this time. I've been a highway patrol officer for 12 years. Long enough to know that most accidents happen in the same few places. There's something about certain stretches of road. A bend too sharp, a sign too faded, a shoulder too narrow. You get used to the patterns. You get used to the noise. That night was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you think you've gone deaf. The air was thick, heavy with that strange stillness that sometimes settles over the highway after midnight. I was parked off Route 37, engine idling low, coffee cooling on the dash. Then the radio crackled. Unit 3-2, copy. 911 call reporting a possible collision. Eastbound near mile marker 9. I remember glancing at the clock. 12:42 a.m. I grabbed the receiver. 3-2, copy. What's the situation? There was a pause. Then the dispatcher's voice came back, softer. Caller reported a crash. Said 2 vehicles, 1 overturned. But here's the thing. 3-2, she's still on the line. She says she's watching it happen. I frowned. Watching it. Yeah, said she's pulled over, but she keeps repeating that the crash hasn't happened yet. At first, I thought I misheard. Static fuzzed through the speaker. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the fatigue. Say again. She says the accident hasn't happened yet. The dispatcher sounded uneasy. I flipped on my lights and pulled onto the road. The asphalt shone under my beams, slick with dew. A low fog clung to the edges of the trees, swallowing everything past a few yards. I drove fast. The only sound was the hum of tires and the faint hiss of the radio. Somewhere in that static, I heard the dispatcher murmuring, talking to the woman on the line. "Ma'am, can you describe what you're seeing?" The woman's voice came through faintly, trembling but clear enough to send a chill through me. "There's a car, a silver one. It's stopped by the shoulder. I can see a man inside. He's holding the wheel, but he's not moving." The dispatcher asked something I didn't catch. "No, I'm not close. I'm across the road. I just know something bad's about to happen." I pressed harder on the gas. The trees whipped past, mile markers flashing in my lights. 6, 7, 8. When I reached 9, I slowed down. The fog was thicker here. My headlights cut through it like blades, but all I saw was empty highway. No silver car. No wreck. I radioed in. "Dispatch, I'm at mile 9. No sign of a collision. You still got the caller?" "Affirmative. She's still on." There was another pause. "She says she can see you." My stomach dropped. I swung my spotlight across the road, scanning the trees, the ditches, the shoulder. Nothing. Just fog. The sound of my own breathing filled the car. Then I saw it. A pair of headlights, far down the road, cutting through the mist. They were moving fast, too fast. The angle was wrong. The line of the car swerving just a little too much. "Dispatch, I've got a vehicle approaching eastbound, high speed. Might be our..." Before I could finish, the silver car hit the bend. The tires shrieked. Metal screamed. It rolled once, twice, then slammed into guardrail and came to rest upside down, right in a sign that read mile marker 9. For a moment, I couldn't move. It was exactly where she said it would be. Exactly how she described it. I ran to the wreck. The smell of gasoline hit me like a wave. The driver was still inside, hanging from the seatbelt, his head turned at an impossible angle. I reached for a pulse I already knew wasn't there. The radio hissed. 3-2 status? I swallowed hard, confirming fatality. Single occupant. Copy. The caller is still on the line. She's asking if the man's name is Daniel. I froze. What? She says his name is Daniel Hart. That's what she told us before it happened. I looked back at the wreck. The license plate was half buried under glass and mud. I brushed it clean with my glove. D. Hart. That's when I started shaking. I went back to the cruiser. "Dispatch." How did she know that? "We don't know." She said she saw it before, that she's seen this crash more than once. Her voice dropped lower. She said she tried to stop it this time. By the time backup arrived, the caller was gone. She hung up mid-sentence. No trace of her number. No record on the system. The tech guy said it was impossible. That 911 calls don't just vanish like that. But it did. We cleared the scene by dawn. I drove home with the image of that overturned car burned into my mind. The way the fog curled around it, almost like it was hiding something. I didn't sleep that day. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the woman's voice again, trembling, desperate, saying she knew it would happen. I started digging later that week, pulled old accident reports, checked every crash within 5 miles of mile marker 9. That stretch of road has a history. 3 years ago, a car went off the shoulder in the exact same spot. Same direction, same make. The driver's name? Daniel Hart. But that's not the part that keeps me up. The report said his wife was the one who called 911 that night. She said she was following him home after an argument. She watched his car spin out and catch fire. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Her name was Lydia Hart. When I found a recording from that night, the original 911 tape, my hands were sweating so bad, I nearly dropped it. The dispatcher back then was the same woman who took my call this year, Carla. I asked her about it later. She didn't remember the voice. Said she'd handled hundreds of calls, maybe thousands, but when I played the tape, I swear it was the same voice. Same tone. Same breathless panic. "Please, you have to hurry," she said. "There's going to be a crash. I can see it. I can see him." That was 3 years ago. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe grief makes you do strange things. Maybe the mind loops through the worst moments it can't accept. But last night, a week after all this, I was back on patrol. Same route, same empty stretch. Around 12:40 a.m., the radio crackled again. Unit 3 to 2, possible collision. Eastbound near mile marker 9. Caller reports. I cut her off. "Tell me something first, Carla." The caller, what's her name? There was a pause. She didn't say, but she sounds familiar. My blood went cold. She says her name is Lydia. The rest of the night's a blur. I remember the fog, the hum of my engine, the mile markers flashing by again. But when I reached 9, there was nothing. No crash, no car, just that same oppressive silence, waiting for something to happen. I sat there for almost an hour, headlights off, listening to the empty road. And then I saw her, a woman standing by the shoulder, pale in the mist, her hair hanging wet over her face. She looked right at me. No fear, no surprise. Just this deep, hollow sadness. And then she was gone. I don't tell people about this part. They'd say it was exhaustion or fog tricks or stress. Maybe they're right. But sometimes, when the radio hums late at night, I still hear that faint static between calls, like someone breathing on the other end. And every time I pass mile marker 9, I slow down, because I can't shake the feeling that she's still there, watching the crash that hasn't happened yet. I didn't go back to mile marker 9 for a few nights after that. Not because I was scared, at least that's what I told myself, but because the whole thing made me feel unsteady, like something inside me had tilted a few degrees off-center. When I finally went back on shift, the road felt different. It was colder, the air hung heavier. Even the radio static had this strange depth to it, like whispering beneath the noise. But the strangest part? It all started happening again. The first call came 3 nights later. Same time, 12:42 a.m. I was halfway through my route when the radio crackled. Unit 3 to 2, copy, possible collision, eastbound, mile marker 9. My hand froze on the steering wheel. The voice was Carla's again. But this time, she sounded nervous, like she already knew what I was about to say. I took a breath. "You're kidding." "Wish I was." Same report, same location. Caller says she's watching it happen right now. I didn't want to ask, but I did. "Is it the same voice?" Carla hesitated. "Yeah, sounds like her." That was all it took. My stomach twisted, and the world outside my windshield seemed to shrink. I turned on the lights and drove hard. The fog returned like it had been waiting for me. The same thick, silver curtain swallowing the highway. When I hit mile 9, I slowed down. The air was dead still again, so quiet that even hum of the cruiser felt wrong. 3 to 2, she says the car is silver. She's saying there's going to be a crash. "Tell her I'm here," I said. She says she knows. Something about that word, knows, hit me like ice. Then the headlights appeared in the fog. Same angle, same sound. The silver car swerving the guardrail, flipped and landed upside down, just like before. Only it wasn't identical. The car wasn't a sedan this time. It was an SUV. Different plate, different driver, but the same crash, the same road, the same scream in my radio. That high, breaking wail of a woman crying out as if she was the one inside. I ran to the wreck, pulled the driver out. He was still alive this time, dazed and bleeding. He kept mumbling something. She called me. She said not to drive tonight. I froze. What did she say her name was? He blinked, eyes wide, shaking. Lydia. That name again. The name I couldn't get rid of. By the time I got back to my cruiser, my hands were trembling so bad I could barely key the mic. "Dispatch, we got a live victim. Get EMS to mile marker 9. "Copy that. 3-2. The caller's gone again. I stared at the fog. "What do you mean, gone?" "Disconnected. And hold on. More static. The numbers unlisted again. Vanished from a log. I didn't answer. Didn't even try. Because in that moment, I could still hear her voice. Not through the radio. In my head. Soft, trembling. He wasn't supposed to die this time. After that night, it became routine. Every few days, around the same time, we'd get another call. Same voice. Same panic. Always about a crash near mile marker 9. And every time, I'd drive out there. Sometimes there'd be a wreck. Sometimes nothing at all. But it was always her. Always Lydia. I started keeping a notebook, logging the calls, the exact words, the differences between them. Small details changed every time. The car, the weather. Once she said there were 2 people inside instead of 1. Once she said I was the one driving. That one kept me up all night. The department thought I was burning out. Carla told me to take some leave, clear my head, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't let it go because I realized something. Every time she called, the world around the crash changed a little too. Signs shifted. Trees looked different. One night, the guardrail was rusted. The next, it looked brand new. It was like the highway itself was caught in some loop, twisting through versions of itself that shouldn't exist. But the crash, that moment, never changed. Always at 12:42 a.m. Always at mile marker 9. One night, I stayed parked there, waiting for it. No call came. No radio crackled. Just me in the fog and the low hum of my idling cruiser. I remember staring at the clock. 12:41. My heart was pounding so hard it made my vision swim. 12:42. Silence. Then my radio clicked on by itself. Not the dispatch channel. Something else. An open frequency. And through the static, I heard her. You shouldn't be here tonight. I froze. Her voice was quiet. Closer. Like she was speaking from somewhere inside the cruiser. Lydia, please, leave before it happens again. My throat went dry. Before what happens, the radio hissed, and for a split second, I heard something underneath her voice, like tires screeching, metal twisting. Then the sound cut out. The headlights appeared behind me. Same silver glow through the fog. The crash unfolded like a memory I couldn't stop replaying. Only this time, there was no driver. The car at the rail and burst apart. Empty, I stepped closer, shaking, the flashlight trembling in my hand. The driver's seat was soaked, but not with blood, with water. Cold, clear water. Like the inside of the car had been pulled from the bottom of a lake. When the tow truck arrived, the vehicle was gone. Just tire marks leading to nowhere. I filed a report. They laughed about it at the station. Called it stress, called it superstition. But Carla didn't laugh. She looked pale. She told me she'd listened to the tape of the call, and there was something wrong with it. She said when she slowed it down, she could hear another voice in the background. A man's voice. It said my name. After that, the call stopped for a while. Maybe a week. I started to think it was over. I even drove past mile marker 9 in daylight, just to prove to myself it was only a road. It wasn't. The next time it happened, it was different. There was no dispatch alert, no call log, no warning. The radio came alive on its own. A voice whispered through the static, faint, gasping. You're late. It was Lydia, but her tone had changed. No fear this time, just exhaustion. You keep trying to stop it, but you can't. Stop what? I asked him. Then the radio filled with screaming. Not hers. Mine. I recognized it. My own voice, yelling through a storm of static and screeching metal. I slammed the radio off. The scream cut instantly, but the sound lingered in my ears, like it was echoing from somewhere deep inside the fog. I drove straight to the station. Carla was on duty. When she saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just turned her monitor toward me. There was a call on the screen. Logged 10 minutes ago. No number, no ID, just one line under caller name. Lydia Hart. And the location? Mile marker 9. But the recording wasn't her voice this time. It was mine. The timestamp read 12:42 a.m. Tomorrow's date. I've stopped sleeping since then. Every night, I hear faint static, like the radio's waiting to speak again. Sometimes I wake up with the sound of tires screeching outside my house. Sometimes I think I see headlights flash through my window just for a second before the darkness swallows them whole. I keep telling myself it's just trauma, that my brain's looping, replaying what it can't make sense of. But I can feel it now, the pull of that stretch of road, like it's waiting for me. Maybe that's what Lydia meant by him. Maybe the crash isn't just an event. Maybe it's a person. Or maybe it's me. Every night I stay away from mile marker 9. I feel a little stronger, like gravity tugging from the edge of a nightmare. And I know it's only a matter of time before I drive that road again. Before the clock hits 12:42. Before the loop closes. And when it does, I think I'll finally hear what comes after the scream. I used to think I knew every road in this county. After 12 years on patrol, you start to map them in your head. Every curve, every sign, every place where the asphalt buckles when it rains too hard. But lately, I've started to wonder if that road ever existed at all. After the last call, the one that came from me, the department pulled me off night shifts. They said it was for my own good. Take a week, they said, get some rest. But I couldn't rest. Not after what I'd seen and what I'd heard. Every night, I'd wake up around the same time, 12:42, heart pounding, certain I could still hear the static from the radio in the dark. And sometimes, I swear I could smell burnt rubber, even inside my house. I tried to tell myself it was just stress, until I decided to prove it. I went down to records to check something simple, the accident logs for Route 37. I figure if I could see it on paper, the mile markers, the dates, the reports, maybe I could make sense of it. But the clerk, an older guy named Ray, frowned when I handed him the request slip. Route 37, he said. You mean County 73? I shook my head. No, Route 37. Runs east, connects to Interstate 12 around mile 9. He just stared at me. Son, we don't have a Route 37. At first, I thought he was joking. But then he turned his monitor around, pulled up the current highway map. There was nothing there, just blank green space between two towns. No, I said quietly. That's not right. I drive that road every damn night. Ray shrugged, uneasy. Maybe it was renamed. You can check the archives downstairs. They keep the old records there. So I did. The basement smelled like dust and coal paper. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls. The air thick with that still, forgotten feeling you only get in old government buildings. I found the folder labeled County Roads, 1998 to 2009. And there it was, Route 37, a two-lane highway connecting Riverside to Haddon Creek. Mile markers 1 through 14, clear as day. I flipped through the pages, scanning accident reports, maintenance requests, patrol logs. My name was on half of them, but when I reached the last few pages, something changed. The entry stopped abruptly. The last one dated March 14th, 2019. After that, nothing. No record of resurfacing, no inspection notes, no closures. It was like the road had just ended. I checked the next folder. County Roads 2020, present. Route 37 wasn't listed at all. When I asked the county engineer about it, he just looked confused. Route 37, he repeated. Never heard of it. He pulled up a satellite view on his tablet, zooming into where the road should have been. Just fields, empty land. I stared at the screen, my throat tightening. That can't be, I whispered. I was there a week ago. He laughed nervously. Well, unless you were driving through a cornfield, you weren't on any road I know. I didn't laugh, because I remembered the signs, the guardrail, the fog curling around mile marker 9, like breath on glass. And if that place didn't exist, then where the hell had I been going every night? That question followed me home. It followed me into my dreams. One night, I tried to pull up the road on my phone's GPS, just to prove to myself it was real. I typed Route 37. Nothing. I tried mile marker 9. The app froze. Then the screen went black, like it couldn't process what I was asking. When it came back on, the map was zoomed into a completely different state. I threw the phone across the room. By morning, I was losing it. I couldn't sit still. Couldn't think about anything else. I went back to the station, told Carla I needed the audio recordings. Every call linked to the mile marker 9 accidents. She hesitated, but handed me the files. You can get this from me. That night, I listened to them one by one. The first few were normal enough. Static, screaming, chaos. But then I noticed something buried underneath the noise. A hum. Low, steady, like the sound of tires on wet asphalt. I turned up the volume. And beneath the hum, I heard voices. Not words, exactly. More like overlapping whispers. Hundreds of them. They rose and fell in rhythm, like wind pushing through the trees. Then, on the third recording, I heard something else. A phrase. Soft, almost too faint to catch. The road remembers. I stopped the tape. Rewound. Played it again. It was there. A woman's voice. Lydia's. But she wasn't panicking this time. She sounded calm. Almost relieved. The road remembers. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I drove out to where Route 37 should have been. I followed my usual route, every turn memorized. But when I reached the intersection that used to lead to it, there was nothing, just grass and an old wooden fence. The highway sign was gone. Even the posts that once held it were missing. I got out of the car, stood there for a long time, staring at the emptiness. If I didn't know better, I would have said the land looked untouched, like no road had ever been there at all. But as I stepped closer, something caught my eye. A faint line through the dirt, cutting across the grass. Straight, deliberate, almost like the ghost of a road. I followed it. The line curved gently, the same way Route 37 always had. And as I walked farther, the world grew quieter. No wind, no birds, just this thick, heavy silence pressing down on me. Then I saw it, a single mile marker, half buried in the dirt. The paint was chipped, the metal rusted through, but the number was still clear, 9. I knelt down, running my fingers over it. It was cold, colder than the air around it. When I touched the metal, my radio crackled. I wasn't even holding the mic. It was just lying in the car, still powered off. Through the static, I heard it again, that soft from the highway, the whispering voices, then a faint echo of Lydia's voice. You found it. I jerked back, staring at the empty field. My chest felt tight. Her voice came again, closer. It remembers you too. And then the static stopped. Everything went quiet, except for the faint rumble beneath my feet, like an engine idling deep underground. I ran back to the car. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the fog was forming even without weather for it. By the time I got home, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I tried to convince myself it was just some leftover piece of the old road. Maybe erosion had covered it up. Maybe I was imagining the voices. But then I checked the dash cam footage from my cruiser, the one that should have recorded everything. The file started normal, just me driving. Then, right where the turn for Route 37 should have been, the image glitched. The scenery blurred, trees bending like they were being pulled sideways. And for one frame, just one, I saw something impossible. A stretch of empty highway, swallowed by fog, and standing in the middle of it, a woman, Lydia. She was looking straight into the camera, her lips moving, no sound, but I could read the words. Don't forget the road. Then the screen went black. The next morning, I tried to show it to Carla, but when I opened the file again, it was gone. The entire folder, deleted. Now I don't know what to believe. Sometimes I wonder if the road is gone because it was never real, or if it's gone because it took what it wanted. Maybe that's why no one remembers it. Maybe that's how it survives. Because some nights when I drive home, I still see the fog rolling across the hills in my rearview mirror. And if I listen closely, I can hear that low hum again, steady and distant, like tires on wet asphalt. And when I blink, for just a second, there's a green sign glowing in the mist ahead of me, mile marker 9. Then it's gone. But every time it disappears, I feel it pulling me closer. And deep down, I know it's still out there. The road that isn't there is waiting. I wasn't supposed to go out there. Dispatchers don't leave the station. That's the rule. We sit behind glass, headsets on, listening to the worst moments of people's lives. We guide, we record, we wait. But after the third week of hearing that same call, the rule didn't matter anymore. I'm Carla, and I was the voice on the other end of all those mile marker 9 calls. At first, it was just another strange shift. An unknown number, a woman's voice. She said a crash was about to happen, gave the location, described the car, even said the driver's name. When the report came in later, she was right. Everything she said matched. That should have been impossible. But then it happened again. And again, same time, same voice. Each time, her tone changed. Sometimes calm, sometimes breaking. Sometimes she sounded like she was crying. Sometimes like she was whispering from another room. And every time the call ended, the log would vanish. The recordings too. I'd watch them disappear right off the screen, as if someone was erasing them in real time. The tech guys couldn't explain it. The supervisor told me I was probably misfiling, but I knew what I heard. Her name was Lydia, and after a while, she started saying mine. The first time it happened, it felt like a punch to the chest. "Carla," she said softly. "You can hear it too, can't you?" I froze. She shouldn't have known who I was. Our names never go out over the line. "It's getting louder," she whispered, the sound between words. Then she hung up. That's when I realized what she meant. After every call, I started hearing something under the static. Not a voice, not exactly. More like an echo, a faint murmur that didn't belong to the caller or me. Sometimes it said fragments, like pieces of sentences that never finished. "He's coming. Turn back. Repeat." That word, repeat, became the one that stuck with me. I'd hear it in the hum of the monitors, in the spaces between transmissions. Even when the line was dead, I stopped sleeping. I'd drive home at dawn, the sun rising behind me, and still hear the echo and the white noise of the radio. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was fatigue. But then one night, Officer Daniels, the one who'd handled the crash, came by the station. He looked like hell. He said he'd gone out there again, and the road wasn't on any map, that it just vanished. When he told me that, something inside me clicked, because I'd seen the same thing. Last year, before all this started, we upgraded our dispatch mapping software. The old grid showed Route 37, the highway where mile marker 9 was, but the new version didn't. It skipped straight from County Road 12 to State Route 5, like the space between them didn't exist. I remember staring at that gap on the screen and feeling cold. I'd brushed it off at the time, but now it all made sense. If the road didn't exist, then where were those calls coming from? And how did they keep finding me? I decided to find out. It was around midnight when I left the station. I didn't tell anyone. I just said I needed air. But instead of driving home, I took a turn east, toward where the road used to be. The city lights fell away behind me. The highway got darker, quieter. By the time I reached the edge of town, there was nothing but open land and fog. My GPS kept trying to reroute, insisting I make a U-turn, but I kept going. After a few miles, my radio, the police band one, came alive on its own, a low hiss, then a faint voice. Unit 3 to 2, possible collision, eastbound, mile marker 9. It was my voice, not live, a recording from one of the old calls. The sound of it made my skin crawl. I turned the volume down, but the static didn't stop. It got louder. The road ahead blurred in the fog, but I knew where I was. Even though it shouldn't have been there, I knew. The sign appeared through the mist like a ghost rising from the dark. Route 37 East. My hands tightened on the wheel. The asphalt looked wet, glistened like it had just rained, but the sky was bone dry. When I reached mile marker 9, I pulled over. The world was silent. No wind, no crickets, just that faint electrical hum, like the air was alive. I picked up the radio mic, just to test the signal. Dispatch to Unit 3 to 2, copy. Static, then after a pause, repeat. It wasn't Daniels. It wasn't any voice I recognized. It sounded distant. Hello. I tried again. This is dispatch. Identify yourself. Repeat. The word came again, slower this time. Drawn out, almost pleading. I looked around. The fog was so thick I couldn't see the hood of my car, but I could feel something, a presence, like someone standing just outside the light. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hello? Silence. Then a whisper. You shouldn't have come. It was Lydia. Her voice trembled, like she was crying and trying to hide it. Lydia, what is this place? I asked. It's not a place, she said softly. It's a moment that won't end. My breath caught. The crash? He keeps driving, over and over. He never makes it home. She started crying. I tried to stop him, but the road keeps remembering. Her words echoed through the fog, carried by the static from the radio. I wanted to ask more, who she was, what she meant, but the line filled with a sound that made my blood run cold. Screaming, metal twisting. The same crash I'd heard a dozen times through the headset. Then a man's voice, low and broken. Carla, I froze. Who is this? Turn around. But I couldn't, because in my rear-view mirror, I saw headlights. They appeared slowly, cutting to the fog. A car moving toward me from the bend ahead. The same silver car. It was coming fast. Too fast. I grabbed the mic. Dispatch. This is Carla. There's a vehicle approaching mile 9. Possible. The headlights vanished. The road ahead was empty again. And then I saw her. A woman standing in the center of the road. Her clothes soaked. Her hair plastered to her face. She raised her hand and pointed at me. Her mouth moved. One word. Repeat. The radio blared to life. Feedback screaming through the speakers. Carla, you there? This is Unit 3 to 2. Daniel's voice. He sounded far away, distorted by static. I pressed the mic to my lips. Daniels, I'm here. I found it. The roads. Carla, stop talking. Listen. I went silent through the radio. Beneath his voice, I could hear it. The same hum, the same overlapping whispers. They were louder now. Dozens of voices layered together, saying the same thing over and over. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The ground trembled beneath the car. The lights flickered. The fog grew so dense it felt solid. Daniels. I shouted, get out of there. It's not. Then his voice was swallowed by static. The last thing I remember was grabbing the mic and trying to send one final transmission. The static built to a roar, the world shaking like it was about to split apart. And then everything went dark. They told me later that they found my cruiser at dawn. Empty. The dash cam was running, but the feed showed nothing. Just fog. My headset was on the passenger seat, still transmitting a live signal. When the text played it back, there was only one word on the tape. Repeat. That's what they say, anyway. But I don't remember leaving that road. I remember the fog swallowing the headlights. I remember the hum fading into silence. And I remember the feeling that someone else was sitting in the car with me. Sometimes, late at night, the radio at the station still clicks on by itself. A faint voice comes through. It sounds like me. Dispatch to all units, possible collision, eastbound, mile marker 9. And then, right before the static cuts off, repeat. It was one of those nights where everything felt heavier than it should. The air, the silence, even the hum of the monitors in front of me. All of it pressed down like a weight I couldn't shake. Midnight shift at the 911 dispatch center. Most nights, the calls blur together. Noise complaints, domestic disputes, the occasional drunk driver who thinks I'm a pizza place. But that night was different. The call came in at 12:47 a.m. A man's voice, shaky, quiet. He didn't start with hello or even I need help. He just said, I can hear them again. I straightened in my chair. Sir, this is 911. What's your emergency? He breathed hard for a moment before answering. They're screaming, he whispered, through the walls. I pulled up the location. Apartment complex. Downtown. Nothing unusual about the area. Old building, mostly retirees and students. You're hearing someone screaming? I asked. Yes. His voice trembled. They started again about 10 minutes ago. It's coming from next door. I called last week, but the officers didn't find anything. I checked the records. He wasn't lying. There'd been a welfare check at that same address 5 nights ago. No noise, no signs of disturbance. Can you describe what you're hearing right now? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then I heard it, faint, like something moving the phone line. A muffled sound, high-pitched. It took me a second to realize it was a scream. Did you hear that? He whispered. My stomach tightened. Yes, I did. It wasn't feedback. It wasn't the static we sometimes get. It was clear, like someone screaming into a pillow just a few feet away from him. I turned to my partner, Michelle, and mouthed, "Listen." She leaned toward my headset. The scream came again, faint but unmistakable. She frowned. "You recording that?" I nodded, though my hand felt heavy on the mouse. "Sir," I said, "can you tell me your name?" "Ethan." "Okay, Ethan. Can you go somewhere safe in your apartment? Away from the wall." "I tried," he said. "It doesn't matter where I go. I still hear it." The scream came again, longer this time, raw and wet, like someone's throat was tearing apart. Michelle whispered, "Jesus," under her breath. "Ethan," I said, "officers are on their way. Just stay calm. Can you tell me if you hear anyone else?" He hesitated. Sometimes it sounds like more than one, but it's the same voice, the same pitch, like they're trapped in the wall. His voice broke on that last word. I typed notes into the log, but something strange happened. The sound wave on my screen flickered, glitched, as if the line wasn't stable. Then, for the briefest second, I thought I heard something else under his voice. A whisper, not from him, from inside the call itself. Michelle noticed it too. She touched my arm. "Do you hear that?" I nodded slowly. It wasn't words at first, more like someone breathing against a microphone. Then, faintly, a voice that didn't belong to either of us. "Help me?" It came through so quietly that my brain almost refused to process it. Ethan must have heard it too, because he gasped, "You heard that, right? You heard it that time." My mouth went dry. "Yes, Ethan, I heard it." He started crying, quietly at first, then harder. "I'm not crazy. They said I was, but I'm not." No one said that. I replied, but my voice felt small, because truthfully, part of me wanted to believe he was crazy. It would have made more sense. I switched the line to speakers so Michelle could hear everything. The screams came and went just in 1 second, right in our ears and necks. And then silence. "Ethan," I said, "are you still there?" Nothing. "Ethan, can you hear me?" A click. Then his voice, but different, lower, shaky. "They stopped." "Good," I said softly. "That's good. They stopped because they're listening." The way he said it, flat, certain, sent a shiver down my spine. "Who's listening, Ethan?" I waited, but he didn't say more. Then, faintly, I heard footsteps echoing through his phone. Hard saws on wood. "Ethan, are the police there already?" "No." He sounded distant now, distracted. "They're in the walls. I can see where the paint bulges. They're pushing from the other side." I felt my pulse in my throat. "Ethan, stay where you are. Do not approach the wall." He laughed, short, broken. "You don't get it, do you? It's not the wall." Before I could respond, the line filled with static, so loud it made Michelle flinch. The sound wasn't random. It pulsed rhythmic, almost like breathing. I turned down the volume. "Ethan," the static shifted again, and I heard something underneath. Words, repeating. "In the dark, in the dark, in the dark." Michelle whispered, "What the hell is that?" I didn't answer. Then, suddenly, Ethan screamed. A full, guttural sound that ripped through the headset. I froze. The scream wasn't distant anymore. It wasn't muffled through walls. It was right there, loud and clear, as if he was standing in front of me. Then silence, just the faint hum of the line. "Ethan?" A long pause. Then, "Don't let them in." The call disconnected. For a moment, all I could do was stare at the waveform frozen on my screen. Then I called it in. "Units dispatched, welfare check, possible assault." 10 minutes later, the officers arrived. They found Ethan's apartment door unlocked. The place was spotless, No struggle, no blood, nothing broken. Just an open phone on the floor, the line still active. And the strangest thing, the officers said they heard it too, faint through the walls, screaming. But when they checked the next apartment over, it was empty. No furniture, no signs of anyone living there. Just bare drywall and a single hole in the plaster, like someone had punched through, trying to reach whatever was inside. They sealed the place off after that. Michelle and I had to file our reports. She tried to joke about it later. Said maybe the neighbors were just good at hiding, but I could tell it bothered her too. Because later that night, when we played back the recording, the screams were gone. All that remained was the sound of my own voice asking, "Ethan, are you still there?" And right after that, a whisper that wasn't mine. Yes, the timestamp matched the exact moment the line went dead. I remember sitting there long after my shift ended, staring at the console. The faint hiss of the radio filled the room, and for a second, I thought I heard something behind it. The echo of that same scream, too faint to be sure. I told myself it was just the air conditioning kicking on. But every night since, around the same time, I get a private line ring. No caller ID, no number. When I pick up, all I hear is breathing. And sometimes when the static clears, it's my name. Carla, that's all they say. And if I listen closely, really closely, I can hear the walls answering. When you work dispatch long enough, you learn to let things go. You hear screams, crashes, gasps, the kind of sound that stick behind your ears even after you take the headset off. And you learn to compartmentalize. You type the report, you log the call, and you move on. But that night, I couldn't move on. Ethan's call kept replaying in my head. His voice, the screams that came through the line, the way they seemed to bleed into the static, the whisper that said, yes, that one word wouldn't leave me alone. By morning, the official report said no persons located, case pending, no further action required. But I knew better. There was something in that apartment. The address was Unit 3B, Waverly Apartments. The name alone made my chest tighten. Waverly was one of those old downtown buildings with warped floors, cracked paint, and a history that nobody really wanted to talk about. Still, people lived there, people like Ethan, and after that night, no one heard from him again. 2 days later, I was back on night shift. Michelle was off, so I was alone in the dispatch booth. Just me, the monitors, and the faint hum of the radio. Around midnight, the phone rang. Private line. I hesitated, then answered. 911, what's your emergency? No response. All I heard was static. Then a faint sound. A scream. The same one from Ethan's call. My throat went dry. Hello? Who is this? No answer. Just another scream. The same pitch, same length, the same pattern. My stomach twisted. I knew that sound. I remembered it. It wasn't just similar. It was identical. I reached for the phone log to trace the call, and that's when I saw the number. It wasn't a block line this time. It was mine, my own dispatch line. I just sat there for a moment, staring at the screen. It didn't make sense. Dispatch lines can't call themselves. It's a closed circuit, inbound only. I hung up. The line immediately rang again. Same number, same tone. I picked up, hand shaking. Who is this? Static, then the faint sound of a man breathing. Ethan? I whispered. A pause. Then slowly, Carla. I nearly dropped the phone. It was my name, but the voice didn't sound like his. It sounded wrong, like something imitating speech, struggling to get it right. The line went dead again. I sat frozen for maybe a minute before I called the precinct. I asked if anyone had gone back to Waverly since the incident. The officer on duty, Daniels, said they had. They'd done a follow-up that morning. According to him, the apartment was still empty. The neighbors said they'd been hearing faint noises at night, tapping, whispers through the vents, but no one knew had moved in. He laughed it off. Old buildings make weird sounds, you know? I didn't laugh, because I knew what those sounds were. That night, I decided to pull the call log again. I went back through the system, looking for Ethan's number, but the file wasn't there. The timestamp existed. I could see the entry, But when I tried to play the audio, it was blank. No waveform. No data. Like it had been scrubbed clean. Except for one thing. At the very end of the call log, a note appeared that I hadn't written. 3 words. Unit 3 be active. That's when my heart started racing. Because that line doesn't even exist in our system. It's something only officers use when clearing buildings. A code for occupancy confirmed. Except there wasn't any occupancy. I tried to close the file. The cursor froze. Then the screen glitched, flickering with static. And I heard it again. Screaming, not from the speakers. From the headset sitting next to me on the desk. I slowly put it on. Hello. The line hissed. Then I heard my own voice. 911, what's your emergency? I froze. It was me, repeating exactly what I'd said the night Ethan called. I pulled the headset off, heart pounding. For a second, the room seemed to tilt, like the air itself was vibrating. I told myself it was a glitch, that the recording somehow got caught in the loop. But then I heard knocking. 3 slow, heavy knocks. On the wall right behind my chair. The sound came from the direction of the storage room. Nobody ever went in there. It was full of old equipment. Radios from the 80s, broken monitors, dust thick enough to choke on. I stood up. Hello. Silence. Then another knock. I forced myself to open the door. The room was dark, cold. The air smelled stale, like wet concrete. And in the far corner, the red light of a phone line indicator blinked on and off. I walked closer. There was an old dispatch console sitting there, disconnected from the wall. The kind we stopped using years ago. But the phone on it was lit up, line 1 active. It shouldn't have been possible. I picked up the receiver slowly. This is dispatch. Static, then a faint voice. Help me? My chest tightened. Ethan, they found a way out, he whispered. I gripped the phone tighter. Who did? The ones in the walls. Then the line went silent. A second later, my radio crackled. The one linked to police channels. Daniel's voice came through. Dispatch! We got a noise complaint again at Waverly. Unit 3B. You copy. My blood ran cold. I hadn't sent any call. I checked the system. Nothing was logged. No one had reported anything. And yet, there he was, responding to a call that didn't exist. Daniels, hold off. I said quickly, we don't have an active call for that address. He paused. That's funny, he said, because I just heard it from your line. I froze. What do you mean, my line? Dispatch call came in about 15 minutes ago. Screaming in the walls. Same voice as last time. I looked down at the phone in my hand. The one still connected to the dead console. My voice trembled. Daniels, don't go inside the unit. He didn't answer right away. Then, already here. The sound of his footsteps echoed faintly through the radio. Daniels listened to me. He cut me off. Jesus Christ, you weren't kidding. There's a smell in here. Like rot. Get out. Hold on. There's something on the wall. Looks like someone tried to carve through it. Daniels. He cursed under his breath. Then a scraping sound filled the channel. There's a hole. Big enough for her. The line distorted. A high-pitched tone cutting through the signal. Then, silence. Daniels. I called. No response. The channel stayed open. But all I could hear was a faint crackle. Then, slowly, another sound emerged beneath it, like fabric dragging across wood. And then a whisper. Unit 3 be active. I slammed the radio off and backed away. The phone on the desk rang again. Same number. Mine. I didn't want to answer, but I did. Hello. My voice came back. Clear, calm, like a recording of myself. 911, what's your emergency? I tried to hang up, but something kept me listening. The recording continued. I can hear them again. It was Ethan's voice. Then my voice, overlapping his. Through the walls, the screams returned, deafening, layered, dozens of voices crying out all at once. I dropped the receiver, heart hammering. The sound didn't stop. It filled the entire room, bouncing off the walls, pulsing to the speakers, the monitors, even the old console in the storage room. Everything was alive with it. And then silence. Every light in the room flickered off. The screens went black. In the darkness, I heard one last sound. The faint click of phone receiver being lifted on the other end. Then, very softly, my own voice whispered back to me. They're not in the walls anymore. I've been a 911 dispatcher for 14 years. You learn to live with the sound of panic. You learn to eat your dinner with a headset on, with someone's last words whispering into your ear. But what I heard that night didn't sound human. It was a little past 2 in the morning, the kind of hour when the building feels hollow. The other dispatchers had already clocked out. I like staying late. Less noise, fewer jokes, fewer stories about bad marriages and worse cops. Just me, the hum of the monitors, and the quiet flicker of the green lights across the consoles. My coffee had gone cold, and I was halfway through typing the shift report when one of the side screens blinked. A red indicator flashed, Channel 17, open. That shouldn't have been possible. Channel 17 was our emergency backup line, a private frequency used during major disasters, floods, wildfires, earthquakes. It had been decommissioned almost 10 years ago. The hardware was disconnected, the line rerouted. No one used it anymore. For a second, I thought it was a glitch. I stared at the screen, waiting for the light to die out, but it didn't. It stayed on, steady red, almost pulsing. I hesitated, then reached for the headset. Static filled my ear, soft at first, then sharper, like rain hitting a metal roof. "Hello," I said, half expecting nothing. "This is County Dispatch. What's your emergency?" No answer, just static. I leaned back, listening. Then I caught it, a faint click, a breath. Someone or something was there. "Hello? Can you hear me?" A long pause. Then a voice came through. It was a man's voice, low, trembling. "We're trapped." I froze. The words were thin, like they'd traveled through miles of water. "Sir, where are you?" I asked, already typing. "Tell me your location." "Station 5, he said. "It's burning. We can't get out." My fingers stopped. Station 5. That name, it made my chest tighten. Station 5 had burned down in 2015. All 6 firefighters inside had died before the trucks even got there. The fire had started in the communications room, right where their emergency radio sat. "Sir," I said quietly, "can you repeat your location?" There was a scrape of movement, a cough, then that same broken whisper. "Station 5. We need help. Please." The sound distorted, stretched out like a warped cassette. For a moment, I just sat there. My headset felt heavy. My throat was dry. 10 years. That channel had been closed for 10 years. I looked at the timestamp on the monitor. It was reading October 14th, 2015, not 2025. I blinked hard. The timestamp flickered once, then corrected itself. Back to normal. I told myself it was a relay malfunction, maybe an old loop signal. Some kind of archive called that glitch back into rotation. That had happened before. Rare, but possible. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the voice was live. "Okay, sir," I said carefully. "Stay calm. I'm sending help to your location." As I spoke, I typed in the code for cross-reference, but the system refused to register it. Access denied. Then the man's voice came back, sharper, more desperate. "They're gone. The fire's in the walls." I could hear crackling in the background, with snapping, and then something else, something that didn't fit. It sounded like screaming, but not from a person, like metal screaming. "Sir, are you injured?" No, I can't." The voice broke apart. "It's on the floor. Please, send someone." The channel hissed again, then silence. I sat frozen for what felt like minutes. The air in the room felt heavier, like the oxygen had been drained out. Then, just as I was about to log it, the channel crackled again. "Dispatch?" This time, the voice was clearer. You could hear every inhale, every drop of panic. But it wasn't the same man. It was a woman. "Who is this?" I asked. No answer, only breathing. "Then help us." I felt my chest tighten. "Ma'am, I need your location." A pause. Then, softly, You already know where. That's when the line began to distort again, louder this time. The static rose into a high-pitched tone, sharp enough to make me flinch. My monitor glitched. Text flashing across the screen in unreadable strings of code. I yanked the headset off. The sound didn't stop. It was leaking from the speakers. The walls of the dispatch room seemed to hum, just slightly, a vibration deep in the air, like the whole building was reacting to the transmission. Then the voice came back. You left us here? I felt my stomach drop. That wasn't a random call. It was talking to me. My hand hovered over the power switch, but I didn't turn it off. I couldn't. I needed to know. Who are you? I whispered. There was no reply. Just faint crying, like someone far down a hallway. Then, slowly, the static began to fade. I watched as the red light on channel 17 dimmed, flickered, then disappeared. The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at the dark screen. The clock on the wall read 2:47 a.m. I logged the event under system interference, then went back to the audio archive to check for recordings. Nothing. The system hadn't saved the call. I didn't sleep that morning. I just went home and sat in the shower, trying to convince myself I was tired, that I'd imagined it all. But later that week, when I came back for my next shift, there was a note waiting on my desk. No name, no date, just a single line written in black pen. You heard us too. I stared at it for a long time. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, and at the bottom corner, in faded red ink, was the number 17. That night, I pulled up the old case file on Station 5. I told myself I just wanted closure, to prove the voice belonged to someone real. But what I found, I shouldn't have looked. The fire report was simple: electrical failure, communication system overload, 0 survivors. But the internal memo attached to it, dated 1 week after the fire, mentioned something I had never seen before. Subject: persistent radio interference on decommissioned channel 17. Origin unknown. Requesting full line shutdown. There was a signature at the bottom. It was my supervisor's. He'd retired 5 years ago. Died last year. I closed the file. My hands were shaking. I could have stopped there. Should have. But the next night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the red light blinked on again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I answered. County dispatch. I said, voice steady. What's your emergency? There was silence. Then, why did you leave the door open? I felt my blood run cold. Because 10 years ago, when Station 5 burned down, I was the one who signed off the final radio test. And I remember, even now, that I never shut the channel down properly. The open channel. Still waiting. Still listening. I couldn't stop thinking about that call. All week, it haunted me. I'd be in the grocery store, and suddenly I'd hear faint static in the hum of the refrigerators. At home, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I heard someone whispering through the vent. Every time I tried to dismiss it, that red light flashed in my mind. Channel 17, glowing steady like a wound that wouldn't close. By Thursday, I'd had enough. I told myself I just needed to prove it was nothing. Maybe the system had glitched, or maybe my mind had. Either way, I couldn't keep pretending it hadn't happened. So, during my next night shift, I stayed late again. Everyone else clocked out at midnight, but I told the supervisor I had paperwork to catch up on. Once the floor went quiet, I opened the old case archives. The digital logs only went back 8 years. Anything older had been moved to the basement. That meant the paper files, boxes of them, stacked on metal shelves, labeled in fading ink. The basement smelled like damp cardboard and old dust. The lights flickered when I walked in. I found a section labeled 2015 incidents. Station 5. There were 3 boxes. The first 2 were full of reports, scene photos, autopsy notes, statements from surviving responders. The third box, though, was different. It had a yellow sticker on the front. Restricted audio logs. Inside were 5 cassette tapes, all marked the same way. STN 5, log followed by a number. I didn't even know we recorded on tapes that late. I took the first one upstairs, borrowed an old player from the evidence room, and plugged it into my console. My hand was shaking a little as I hit play. At first, it was just static, thick, rough, constant. But after a few seconds, a faint voice started to push through, reporting smoke in, then more static, then clearer. Can't reach control. The system's fried. It was a male voice. Calm, but forced calm. You could hear the tension under it. I recognized it. Captain Don Mills, one of the 6 who died in the fire. I'd spoken to him before, years ago, during drills and test calls. He'd always sounded sure of himself, confident, but in the recording, there was something else. A tremor. I leaned closer. A second voice came in, female this time. Don, we got movement near the stairwell. Movement, then a loud bang, so sharp I flinched. The sound warped into static. When it cleared, Mills was breathing hard. It's in the walls, he said. It's inside the goddamn walls. I paused the tape. I remembered reading the fire report. No mention of that. No sign of structural failure before the explosion. No mention of anyone reporting movement. I rewound. Play that part again. Same words. Same fear. When I looked at the timer, I realized something strange. The counter on the tape was moving faster than normal, like it was skipping seconds. I turned the speed dial. Everything looked fine, but when I played it again, there was something new underneath the static. A faint rhythmic sound, like breathing, not through the mic, through the tape itself. It was so soft that if I hadn't been wearing a headset, I might have missed it. A slow inhale, then a rasping exhale, buried deep under the hiss. I sat back. My heart was pounding. The building was quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. I took a long breath, then hit play again. The next part of the tape was chaos. Shouting, alarms, the roar of flames. Then, something else. A voice that didn't sound like Mills or the female firefighter. A whisper, close, intimate. It said, "Don't leave the door open." I ripped the headset off. My pulse was in my throat. I sat there, staring at the player, trying to convince myself I'd misheard it. Maybe one of the other responders had said it, or maybe it was just interference. But when I pressed rewind and listened again, the whisper was gone, completely gone, like it had never been there. The rest of the recording was just the sound of the fire growing louder, and then silence. I ejected the tape and stared at it. My hands were cold. I looked to the box again and saw that the 5th tape had a piece of tape over its label. Someone had written on it in thick black marker, "Do not play." That should have stopped me. It didn't. I told myself I'd just listen for a few seconds, just enough to understand what the big deal was. The moment I pressed play, I knew something was wrong. No static, no breathing, just an empty hum, so low it barely existed. Then a voice, not Mills, not any of the crew, my voice. It said, "County Dispatch, what's your emergency?" I froze. That was my exact tone, my phrasing, even the way I paused before emergency. Then, softly, another voice answered, "Station 5, we need help." My blood went cold. It was the same call I'd heard last week, word for word, the same voice, the same desperation. But this was recorded 10 years ago. I listened as my own voice said, "Tell me your location." Then the man said, "Station 5, it's burning. We can't get out." Every second matched perfectly with what I remembered hearing over Channel 17. Even the static, the distortion, the crying at the end. It was all there. I felt my stomach twist. How could that be possible? The recording continued. After the last crackle, there was silence again. Then a faint, dragging sound, like someone moving a recorder, and a new voice whispered, "You left the door open." The same words, the same tone. I stopped the tape and rewound it 3 times, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Every time, the whisper was there, but when I checked the sound levels on the console, the pattern didn't match any human speech. The waveform was almost flat. It was like the voice wasn't recorded. It was imprinted. By the time I realized my hands were shaking, sweat started to run down my back. The tape clicked as it hit the end. Then, suddenly, without me touching anything, it started to rewind. Fast. The reel spun violently. the sound rising in pitch until it almost screamed. Then it stopped on its own and began to play again. This time, the voice came through immediately, calm, steady, deliberate. "Are you still listening?" I pushed my chair back so hard it hit the cabinet behind me. My breath came out in short bursts. I hit the stop button, but the tape didn't stop. The reels kept turning. The voice spoke again, slower this time. "Don't turn away from us." The lights in the room flickered once. The monitors went black for a split second, then came back. The clock on the wall reset to 2:13 a.m., the same time the channel had opened. I pulled the plug from the wall. The player shut off instantly. For a few seconds, the silence was so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. I grabbed the tape, put it back in the box, and shoved it under the desk. I didn't want to see it anymore. But when I turned back to my console, the main monitor was flashing again. Channel 17, incoming signal. No, it wasn't possible. The system was unplugged. Still, the red light blinked on and off, slow and steady. Then I heard it, faint, through the unplugged headset lying on the desk. A man's voice whispering, "We heard you too." The sound grew louder, not through the headset anymore, but through the air, like the room itself was carrying it. I couldn't move. All I could do was listen. The voice grew softer again, almost tender. "Help us close it." Then silence. The light went out. I sat there for a long time, unable to breathe. I didn't know what it was, what they meant by closing it, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever had burned in Station 5, it wasn't gone. It was still here, inside the wires, inside the tape, inside the open channel. And now it knew my name. It's strange how sound can follow you. Even when you turn off the devices, unplug the wires, move rooms, it still lingers. After I heard those voices from the tape, I stopped using the console for a few days. I told my supervisor the system was acting up. He shrugged, said the tech team would check it out. But that night, when I got home, I could still hear faint static in my ears. Not loud, just a soft hiss, like something was breathing behind the walls. I tried to ignore it. I tried to sleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the red light of Channel 17 blinking in the dark. On the fourth night, I gave in. I went back to the dispatch room. The place felt different now. I don't know if it was me or the air itself, but something about it felt wrong. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed slower, like they were pulsing in time with a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I turned the console on, half expecting the red light to come alive again, but it stayed dark. I almost laughed in relief. Almost, because when I looked down at the log screen, there were new entries. 4 of them, all time-stamped within the last 48 hours. Each one was labeled crosslink/unauthorized transfer. I opened the first file. It was an audio fragment, barely 2 seconds long. Static, then a whisper. "Who's there?" I opened the second one. This time, a male voice, calm, official, the kind of tone only a dispatcher used. He said, "Copy that, Station 5." But that wasn't possible. Station 5 didn't exist anymore. The third file was worse. It wasn't a recording. It was 2 recordings playing over each other, layered in a way that made the words almost melt together. Different voices, overlapping, men and women, dispatchers and responders. And somewhere in that chaos, one word stood out, my name. It wasn't shouted. It was spoken, like someone testing how it sounded in their mouth. Then again, clearer, "Laura." I felt my stomach twist. I'd never logged my name into any of those old systems. The 2015 data shouldn't have had any personal info tied to me. I didn't even start working there until 2017. Still, I kept listening. The fourth file opened automatically, like the system wanted me to hear it. It was longer, maybe 2 minutes. At first, it was the same chaos of overlapping transmissions. Then, beneath it, a voice emerged. A man's voice. Low, familiar. Channel 17 still open. Then another voice cut through it. Mine, from the previous call. "County Dispatch, what's your emergency?" My own words, bleeding into the static like an echo trapped inside a tunnel. The 2 voices began to sync. merging like they were speaking to each other across the recording. Channel 17 still open. County Dispatch, what's your emergency? Help us close it. I felt something inside me go cold, because in that moment, I realized it wasn't an echo. It was conversation, old recordings and new transmissions talking to each other. Crosstalk, that's what we called it when two channels overlap by accident. But this wasn't random interference. These were names, words, even responses that matched across a 10-year gap. I sat frozen for a while, listening to the sound of my own voice talking to someone who shouldn't exist anymore. Then I heard it again, soft, faint, but distinct. My name, Laura. I turned the volume all the way down, but I still heard it, not through the speakers. Through the air, I spun in my chair, looking around the dark room. Every shadow felt alive. Then I saw it, the red light, channel 17. It blinked once, then again, waiting. I told myself not to touch it, but my hand moved before my brain could stop it. I pressed a button. Static filled my ears. Then silence. Hello, I said, voice shaking. There was a pause. Then a faint sound, someone breathing. Who is this? I whispered, and then, in a small, trembling voice, a woman answered. Laura, it's me. I felt every muscle in my body lock up. The voice sounded like mine. Not exact, but close enough that it made my skin crawl. Who are you? The voice hesitated, then said, You shouldn't have listened to the tapes. I froze. What do you mean? Silence. Then, quietly, you opened it again. The line crackled, and another voice cut in, a man's voice this time. The same one I'd heard on the old recordings. Channel's bleeding again, he said. She can hear us. Then another voice, further away, whispering. Close it. The sound started to distort. Overlapping voices, all speaking at once. Some were crying, some shouting orders, some whispering things I couldn't understand. And then, amid all the chaos, I heard the same female voice again. The one that sounded like me. She left us here, she said. The noise built until it wasn't sound anymore. It was pressure, thick and heavy, pressing against my chest. I yanked the headset off, but the voices didn't stop. They were coming from everywhere now. Through the speakers, through the console, even through the floor. Names. Dozens of them. Some I recognized from the Station 5 file, Mills, Rodriguez, Ellis. But one name repeated louder than the rest. Laura, Laura, Laura. It was like they were testing how far they could push it. How many times they could say it before I broke. I grabbed the power switch and shut everything off. The voices stopped instantly. For a long moment, I just sat there, breathing hard. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely steady them. But when I looked back at the console, I noticed something that made my heart skip. The monitor, though off, still had faint text glowing in the darkness. It said, Crosstalk active. 2 channels connected. I didn't understand. Both systems were dead. There was no connection to anything. Then, one by one, letters began to appear beneath it, slowly, like someone was typing from the other side. You were there too. I backed away. My chair hit the wall. No, I whispered. That's not true. But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore, because I started remembering something. A drill I'd done during training, a night when the system failed, and we were told to reroute communications through backup channels. I remember hearing a voice that night too, someone crying for help, and I remember ignoring it. It was late. I was new. I thought it was interference. But what if it wasn't? What if channel 17 never closed because I didn't respond? My mind was spinning. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. The hallway outside was dark, the emergency lights dim and orange. Everything felt stretched, like time itself was dragging its feet. As I walked past the break room, I heard the faint hum of a radio. Someone had left it on. I almost kept walking, but then I heard it. My voice. Soft, calm. County Dispatch, what's your emergency? I froze. Then another voice answered. The same trembling male voice from the tapes. Station 5. It's burning. And then, over both of us, another voice whispered, Close the door. The radio clicked off. I stood there in the dark, my pulse hammering in my ears. The static faded, and in that moment, I understood something horrible. The voices weren't coming from the recordings anymore. They were coming through them, like the dead were learning how to speak again, using our own words, our own signals. The line between past and present wasn't a line anymore. It was a loop, crosstalk. I left the building before sunrise. But even as I drove home, I could still hear faint whispers in the hum of the car's engine. Names, breathing, and one voice, soft and low, repeating from somewhere deep inside the static. Don't forget who answered first. I turned up the radio to drown it out, but the song that played wasn't music. It was my own voice again. County dispatch, what's your emergency? And then silence. I didn't go back to work for 3 days. I told the supervisor I was sick. He didn't ask questions. Probably thought I just needed time off. But those 3 days felt longer than years. Every hour, the world felt a little more hollow. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. Every appliance hummed like it was breathing. Every silence felt heavy, waiting. I couldn't turn on the TV. I couldn't even pick up my phone. The thought of hearing another voice through a speaker made me feel sick. But on the third night, I heard something I couldn't ignore. It was just after 2 a.m., the same hour the channel always opened. A faint sound came from the kitchen, like the low buzz of a radio picking up static. I followed it slowly, half awake, half afraid to move. The sound was coming from the baby monitor. I didn't even own a baby monitor. It was old, yellowed plastic, the kind that used to run on batteries. I had no idea how it got there. It sat on the counter, crackling softly. When I stepped closer, the noise shifted. Then, clear as day, a voice came through. County dispatch, what's your emergency? My voice. I froze. It was the same tone, the same rhythm. But what came next made my blood turn cold. Another voice answered. A man's voice gasping, scared. Station 5. It's burning. We can't get out. The exact same words. The same call I'd heard on Channel 17. Only this time, I could hear something else under it. Screaming, metal collapsing, and then my own breathing, sharp and panicked. I picked up the monitor, but it was ice cold, like it had been sitting outside all night. The static grew louder, rising until I could barely think. And then quietly, under all that noise, I heard myself whisper, "Please don't let me die here." I dropped it. The sound cut off instantly. I stood there for a long time, staring at the thing lying on the floor, waiting for it to move, waiting for something else to speak. It didn't, but I knew what I had to do. I got in my car and drove back to the dispatch center. The roads were empty and the city felt wrong, like the lights were dimmer than usual, the air thicker. Every red light lasted longer than it should have. Every shadow in the corner of my eye seemed to stretch and lean closer. When I finally reached the building, the parking lot was deserted. The front doors were unlocked. Inside, everything looked the same, but the air smelled faintly of burnt wires. I walked to my console. Channel 17 was already flashing red. I didn't even sit down. I just put the headset on and whispered, "I'm here." Static filled my ears for a long, hollow moment. Then a voice came through. "Laura." It was the same voice. My voice, but softer, tired. "You shouldn't have come back," it said. I swallowed hard. "What is this? Who are you?" The voice hesitated. Then, "I'm you." I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, you're recording. A trick." But then I heard breathing, my breathing, and the soft tremor in the voice that I knew too well. It was real. "You were supposed to be here," she said. "That night, Station 5. I felt my body go rigid. "What are you talking about?" "You were on the rotation. You switched your shift with Erin, remember?" The memory hit me like a punch to the chest. Erin. God, I hadn't thought about her in years. She was a new dispatcher back then. Sweet, quiet, always nervous around the radios. We swapped shifts because I had a migraine. She took my place that night. The night Station 5 burned. I sat down slowly, feeling sick. "She died and she..." I whispered. "Yes," the voice said. She answered the call that was meant for you. My throat tightened. That doesn't make sense. The fire. The fire started after the call. Her words sliced through me. She picked up the line. Channel 17. She heard them first. And then the walls started to burn. I wanted to rip the headset off, but I couldn't. The room around me seemed to fade. The hum of the machines grew faint, distant. All I could hear was her voice. My voice. And the sound of flames somewhere far away. You left the door open, she said softly. The signal never stopped. The line stayed open. I didn't mean to. I stammered. But you did. And now it's looping. Over and over. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, heavy, full of smoke that wasn't really there. Through the static, I heard faint screams again. Men shouting. Radios clicking. The chaos of that night bleeding through time. Then another voice joined in. Dispatch, we're trapped. Floors caving in. It was Mills. Captain Mills. And beneath his voice, another whisper crept in. The same one that had haunted me from the tapes. Don't leave the door open. I covered my ears, but it didn't stop. The words were inside my head now. Laura, my other self said softly, it's not the fire that killed them. It's the echo. What? The channel. It loops time. It pulls everything that's left. Voices, moments, fear. It feeds on the ones who listen. Her tone broke on the last word. That's why she died instead of you. The line chose her. I shook my head, but tears blurred my vision. So what'd I do? How'd I stop it? There was silence. Then, you can't. Not anymore. But you can finish the transmission. What does that mean? Close the channel. I looked down at the console. The red light was flashing faster now, almost frantic. The other channels were flickering too, one by one, until the entire board glowed like a heartbeat. Through the headset, the fire roared louder. Screams filled the air, but under it all, I could hear something deeper, like a low vibration, a hum that wasn't part of this world. You were supposed to die that night, she whispered. You still can. For a second, everything went white. When my eyes adjusted, I wasn't in the dispatch room anymore. I was standing in another place. The walls were blackened. The air was choking. Flames licked at the ceiling. The smell of smoke filled my lungs. Station 5. I could hear the radios blaring, voices crying for help. And in the corner, through the smoke, I saw a woman at a console. She was wearing my headset, my uniform. And when she turned around, I saw my own face, smeared with ash, eyes wide with terror. She mouthed something I couldn't hear at first. Then it came through the headset, still clinging to my ear. Close it. I reached for the console. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely touch the switch. When I pressed it, the entire room seemed to explode in sound. Screaming, static, fire, all crashing together into one unbearable roar. Then silence. I opened my eyes. The dispatch room was dark again. Smoke lingered faintly in the air, but the consoles were dead. The red light on Channel 17 was gone. I sat there for a long time, breathing, my ears ringing the quiet. Then the intercom crackled. A faint, tired voice whispered through. Transmission complete. I knew that voice. Erin. And just before the line went dead again, she said one last thing. Thank you for closing the door. The silence that followed was absolute. No static. No echoes. No hum in the walls. Just stillness. When I left the building that night, the sun was just starting to rise. The world felt lighter somehow. Empty but calm. I didn't tell anyone what happened. There's no report. No recording. Nothing left to prove any of it was real. But sometimes when I drive past the old Station 5 memorial, I swear I can still hear the faint hiss of static through the car speakers. And once in a while, just before it fades, I hear her voice again. My voice, whispering the same words I'll never forget. County Dispatch, what's your emergency? My shift at the call center always started the same way. Dim light, burnt coffee, and that low hum from the old computers that made the silence feel alive. We handled all kinds of calls, power outages, billing issues, people yelling because their Wi-Fi didn't work. I'd been doing it for almost 6 years, and I thought I'd heard it all. Then came the call from a man on Elm Street. It was a Tuesday night, around 11:40 p.m. The board was almost dead, just a few lines blinking. My coworker, Jenna, was half asleep beside me, scrolling through her phone. I remember thinking how quiet was, too quiet for a night shift. Then my phone lit up. Line 3. The ID said, private number. I took a breath and answered. Customer service. This is Daniel speaking. How can I help you tonight? A voice came through, soft, polite, and oddly calm. Ah, good evening, young man. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Something about how he spoke made me sit up straight. It wasn't just his tone, it was how careful he sounded, like someone raised in another time. No, not at all. I said, how can I help you, sir? He paused for a second before replying. I'm waiting for someone. She hasn't come home yet. I just thought maybe you could check if the phone lines were working. I frowned. I'm sorry, sir. Who are you waiting for? My wife, he said gently. She went to the market hours ago. The power went out just after she left, and I've been sitting here in the dark. It was strange. He didn't sound panicked, just lonely. I asked for his address to check the outage record. He said, it's 47 Elm Street. I typed it in. The system lagged a little, and when the record came up, the note field caught my eye. 47 Elm Street. Service terminated. Property condemned after fire. August 1997. I blinked. Sir, did you say 47 Elm Street? Yes, he replied, still calm. That's right. The old white house with the porch swing. He chuckled lightly, though the swing's been squeaky lately. I told Margaret to oil it, but she never listens to me. My throat went dry. That house had burned down nearly 30 years ago. I tried to stay professional. Sir, I think there might be some mistake with the address. Are you sure? But he interrupted, not rudely, just softly. No mistake, son. I'm here right now. The clock just struck midnight. She's late. A faint sound came to the line, then a slow, rhythmic creak. Back and forth, like an old swing swaying in the wind. Sir, I said quietly, are you sure the house number is correct? He laughed under his breath. Young man, I built this house with my own hands. It's as real as you are. The line went quiet. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. You sound kind. Would you mind staying on the line until she comes back? I don't like being alone in the dark. I wanted to hang up. I really did. But something in his voice, something tired, made me stay. Sure, I said, I can stay for a bit. He thanked me, and for the next few minutes, neither of us spoke. All I heard was that creaking swing and the faint tick of a clock somewhere behind him. After a while, I said, what's your name, sir? Edward, he said. Edward Harland. I typed it in, half out of habit. There it was, a record from 1997. Same address. The note said, Edward and Margaret Harland. Deceased, fire investigation closed. I felt the air leave my chest. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Edward, I said carefully, how long have you been waiting for your wife? He thought for a long time before answering. Feels like a long while. Maybe longer than I remember. But she always comes home. Always. Then I heard it. The faint crackle of something on his end, like static but deeper, and under it, a sound I still can't explain. It was like wind, but it moved through the room, not around it. He said, do you hear that? The wind's changed direction. It always does before she comes home. My heart pounded. Edward, I said, can you tell me what you see around you right now? He hesitated. The lights are out, but the fire's still glowing. The walls are warm. The air smells like smoke. A small pause. She must be close. The hairs on my arm stood up. I whispered, Edward, do you know what year it is? He chuckled softly. What kind of question is that? It's 1997, of course. And then silence. The call disconnected. I just sat there, staring at the blank screen. My mouth was dry, my palms sweating. Jenna looked over, half awake. You good? I told her about the call, expecting her to laugh. But she didn't. Instead, she said, 47 Elm Street? You're kidding. She told me she grew up 2 blocks away from there. The house had burned down in '97. Family trapped inside. They said the husband was waiting for his wife to return from the store when the fire started. Neither made it out. I couldn't shake it off. For the rest of my shift, I kept staring at line 3, waiting for it to light up again. It didn't. But the next night, around the same time, 11:40, the line blinked again. Private number. Line 3. My chest tightened. I picked up. Customer service. This is Daniel speaking. Silence. Then, good evening, young man. I hope I'm not disturbing you. The exact same words. The same tone. I felt a cold weight in my stomach. Edward. He chuckled. Oh, you remember me. How kind. I'm still waiting. She should have been back by now. The same creak echoed through the receiver. Back and forth. Back and forth. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then quietly I asked, Edward, what do you see outside your window? He paused. It's raining. There's ash on the porch. Someone standing by the gate, but I can't see her face. My heart skipped. Who is it? I think it's her, he whispered, but she looks wrong. Her hair is moving even though the wind stopped. There was a long silence. Then I heard something else. Another voice, faint, female, whispering his name. Not from the phone, from behind him. He said, she's home. Then came a sharp crackle, and the call cut off. I didn't move for a while. I just sat there, staring at the deadline, listening to my own breath. The next day, I tried to find a call record. There wasn't one. The system showed nothing for line 3 at that time. My supervisor said maybe it was a test line glitch, but I checked the logs myself. Line 3 hadn't been active for years. It was listed as disconnected. That night, I didn't come in for my shift, but when I got home, my phone rang. Unknown number. I froze. For a moment, I thought about letting it ring, but my hand moved on its own. I picked up. Hello. The line crackled, faint and distant. Then that same calm voice. Good evening, young man. I hope I'm not disturbing you. My breath caught in my throat. I whispered, Edward? He sighed softly. No, not Edward. Silence. Then a woman's voice, low, tired, familiar. I've been looking for him. Have you seen my husband? I've been a dispatcher for 7 years now. Long nights, endless coffee, and the constant hum of monitors that make you feel like time isn't real anymore. People don't understand what it does to your head. Hearing strangers scream, whisper, die, then moving on like nothing happened. You learn to forget. You have to. At least, that's what I thought. Until Edward Harland. The first time I heard his name was from a coworker, Daniel. He didn't last long after that night. Quit without notice. He told me he'd been talking to a man from a house that burned down years ago. We all laughed. Said he was overworked, maybe sleep deprived. But I saw the way he looked at last night before he left. The kind of fear that doesn't leave your eyes. I didn't think about it again. Not until the same number called me. It was just past midnight. The building was empty, except for me and a janitor down the hall. My headset beeped. Private number. Line 3. Something about that line always made me uneasy. It wasn't assigned to anyone, but it still lit up like it wanted to be used. I hesitated, then picked up, Emergency dispatch. This is Natalie. What's your emergency? There was a faint hum and then a man's voice. Good evening, young lady. I hope I'm not disturbing you. My stomach turned cold. He spoke slowly, politely, like someone from another time. Sir, I said, try and keep my tone steady. I was hoping you could help me. My wife hasn't come home yet. I've been waiting, but the lights went out. I typed automatically, like I'd done 1,000 times before. What's your address, sir? 47 Elm Street. That name, that address, it sat there on the screen, glowing faintly in the dark. Something in me froze. Sir, can you repeat that? He did, patient and polite, as if nothing was strange. And while he spoke, I remembered Daniel's story, word for word. My fingers trembled slightly. I looked up the address, though I already knew what I'd find. Property condemned. Fire incident. August 1997. The same file Daniel had mentioned. The same man. My voice came out soft, careful. Sir, can you tell me your name? He hesitated for a moment and then said, Edward Harlan. I stopped breathing. For a few seconds, the only sound was that faint, distant creak of wood, like a swing in the wind. Edward, I whispered. How long have you been waiting? He chuckled quietly. Seems like forever, dear. She always takes her time, but she'll come home soon. She always does. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I sat there, frozen. My heart was racing, but the room was silent. Then I realized my hand was shaking. I checked the timestamp. 12:03 a.m. I saved the recording. I don't know why. Maybe I just needed proof that it happened. When my shift ended, I couldn't go home. Instead, I opened the archives. It was stupid, reckless, but I couldn't stop myself. The system was old. Half the records were scanned paper files. I typed in Edward Harlan. One result. Case ID 0412A. Fire fatality. August 17, 1997. Logged by dispatcher. And hell, my hands froze on the keyboard. That was me. I opened the file, staring at my name, my initials, in the corner. I didn't remember it. Not at all. But the system doesn't lie. The incident summary was short. Mail caller reported smoke inside residence at 47 Elm Street. Dispatcher remained on the line until connection lost. Fire crews arrived at 12:19 a.m. One fatality confirmed its scene. Caller identified as Edward Harlan. I felt something twist in my chest. It wasn't just that he died. It was that I'd spoken to him. I was the one who heard him last. But I didn't remember. I've handled thousands of calls. They blur together after a while. But this felt different. Like a piece of memory just vanished. I scrolled further down. The attached transcript was barely legible. Faded scan, smeared ink, but I could still make out parts of it. The smoke's getting thicker. My wife's outside. She's calling me. Do you hear that? The wind's changed direction. And then nothing. The call ended. The file said the dispatcher stayed connected for 11 minutes. 11 minutes of someone dying on the line. Someone I was supposed to help. But I didn't remember a second of it. I sat there for hours, reading that file over and over. When I finally stood, the room felt colder. The screens flickered. And for just a second, I thought I saw movement in the reflection. Someone standing behind me. I turned around. Empty. Still, the feeling didn't leave. It followed me home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that address, 47 Elm Street, burning behind my eyelids. I could almost hear the fire. Around 2 a.m., my phone rang. Private number. I didn't answer. The next morning, I went back to the station early. I wanted to see the old dispatch logs, the ones they kept in storage. The basement was damp, full of old cardboard boxes. The air smelled like dust and mildew. I found the 1997 section. There it was, box hashtag 412A. I pulled it open. Inside was a cassette tape labeled Harlan/47YLM. I stared at it for a long time before putting it in the old player. A click, a hiss, then a voice, faint, crackling, distant. This is Edward Harlan. The fire's spreading. My wife, she's outside, but she won't come in. She just keeps standing there. Then my own voice, younger, shakier. Edward, stay calm. The fire department is on the way. Can you get to a window? She's waving at me now, but she looks wrong. Her face is different. I heard myself breathe. Then, Edward? Edward, can you still hear me? Silence. Then a faint creaking sound. Back and forth. Back and forth. The tape ended. I took off my headset. Hands trembling. There was no doubt it was my voice. I'd been there. I'd heard him die. But if that was true, why had he called again? When I went back upstairs, line 3 was blinking. Private number. It wasn't even midnight yet. My throat went dry. I shouldn't have answered. But I did. Dispatch, this is Natalie. The voice came through clear, calm, warm. Ah, there you are. I was hoping you'd pick up tonight. It was him. I couldn't breathe. Edward, I said quietly. You shouldn't be calling this number. He laughed softly. Oh, but you said you'd stay with me. Don't you remember? My pulse hammered in my ears. That was a long time ago. Edward. Time, he said, almost infused. Has it been that long? A pause. Margaret came home last night. She asked about you. I didn't speak. He continued, voice softening. You were kind to me that night. You tried to help, but you shouldn't have stayed on the line so long. What do you mean? She followed the sound of your voice. My heart stopped. Who did? He whispered, Margaret. And then I heard it, breathing, not his. Slow, close, just beyond the receiver. A woman's whisper, faint but sharp. He never should have called you again. The line snapped. The monitors around me flickered. The air turned thick, heavy. I could hear something behind me. A shuffle like bare feet on tile. When I turned, there was nothing, but in the reflection of the dark window, I saw two shapes. One tall, one smaller, both unmoving. I blinked and they were gone. I tried to tell myself I imagined it, that the fatigue was getting to me. But then the system beeped. A new file appeared in the queue. No one had touched it. Case ID 0412A. Timestamp today, 12:06 a.m. Dispatcher, N hell. Status, active call. My blood ran cold. I opened it. The screen flickered. And then I heard my own voice repeating from somewhere inside the file. Dispatch, this is Natalie. What's your emergency? Then Edward's voice, calm and polite, overlapping it. Ah, good evening, young lady. I hope I'm not disturbing you. The words echoed through the speakers, looping back and forth, my voice, his voice, over and over, until all I could hear was a creaking sound again, back and forth, like something still waiting. I shut off the monitor, but I can still hear it. Even now, sometimes, when the office goes quiet, line 3 lights up again, and for just a moment, before I force myself to look away, I swear I see a faint reflection in the screen. An older man, sitting in the dark, waiting for someone. I didn't go back to work after that night. I told them I needed a break, that the job was getting to me. They didn't ask many questions. People burn out all the time in dispatch. The higher-ups just nod and move on. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, about him, about how the system had logged an active call under my name hours after I'd hung up, about that voice, calm, polite, patient, and the woman whispering in the background. I tried convincing myself it was just a glitch. Maybe the software duplicated an old entry. Maybe I was overtired, hearing things that weren't there, but deep down, I knew it wasn't over. That night, I stayed awake long after midnight. The air in my apartment felt heavier than usual, like the walls were holding their breath. Every sound seemed too loud. The tick of the clock, the hum of the fridge, the faint buzz of the streetlight outside my window. I kept glancing at my phone on the nightstand, half expecting it to ring. It didn't. At least, not yet. When I finally started to drift off, a sharp tone cut through the silence. I opened my eyes. My phone screen was glowing in the dark. Incoming call, dispatch line 3. I froze. That was impossible. My personal phone couldn't even receive internal line calls. The dispatch network was closed, offline, only accessible through the system computers. But there it was, line 3. I let it ring twice, thinking it had to be some kind of spoof, maybe a wrong number. Then I saw the full ID appear on the screen, the exact 10-digit number of my own emergency desk. I stared at it, heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then, almost without thinking, I answered. Hello. There was a faint hum, then a soft click, like an old phone connecting. No one spoke. Who is this? I said, quietly. A familiar voice answered. Ah, good evening, young lady. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I sat straight up in bed. My mouth went dry. Edward. He chuckled softly. You remember. That's kind of you. My throat tightened. How are you calling me? This number, it's not. He interrupted gently. You sound tired. Are you still at your desk? I swallowed hard. No, I'm at home. You shouldn't be calling this line. He paused for a long moment, as if confused. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. But you are at your desk. His tone was calm, matter of fact. I can see you, he said. You're sitting right there. The monitors are still on. I looked around my dark bedroom, my phone shaking in my hand. He couldn't see me. He couldn't. You're mistaken. I whispered. He sighed. Maybe I am. It's hard to tell sometimes. The rooms, they change and the lights go out. My breath caught. He continued softly, almost like he was reminiscing. Do you remember the night we first spoke? You told me to stay calm. You said help was coming. I didn't respond. The fire was everywhere, he said. It was hot, but I couldn't feel it. I just kept hearing the phone ring, over and over, like it didn't want me to stop talking. There was a faint distortion in the background, like static mixed with whispering. Edward, I said quietly. What do you want from me? He didn't answer at first. Then, almost gently, he said, I just want to finish our call. The line crackled, and for a moment, I thought I heard my own voice echoing back. Distant, tinny, like a recording. Dispatch, this is Natalie. What's your emergency? I froze. That was me, my own voice. But it wasn't coming from the phone speaker. It was behind me, faint, in the dark. I turned slowly toward my desk. The little red light on my work laptop, the one that meant it was on standby, was blinking. I hadn't touched that computer in days. I hung up the phone, heart hammering. The moment I did, the laptop screen flickered to life. It opened directly to the dispatch interface. Incoming call, line 3. I just stared at it, paralyzed. Then, before I could reach it, the system auto-answered. My headset wasn't even plugged in, but the speakers came alive. Ah, there you are, Edward said softly. I thought I'd lost you. I couldn't breathe. Why are you doing this? I whispered. He didn't sound angry, just lonely. It's quiet here, he said. You're the only one who ever answers. I took a step back. Where is here? He paused. I heard faint movement, the creak of a floorboard, maybe a door opening somewhere far away. It used to be home, he said. Now it's just waiting. Then came a faint, dragging sound, like someone walking slowly across ashes. I think she's close, he whispered. Would you like to say hello? No, I said immediately. Edward, please, just hang up. He laughed, soft and sad. That's what you said the first time. And then, through the speakers, came a new sound. A woman's voice. Low, wet, like every word scraped its way through her throat. Edward, who are you talking to? I felt the air in my apartment shift, growing colder. She can't hear me. I whispered. Oh, she can, he said. She's standing right beside you. I turned. Nothing. Just the dark outline of my room. The faint reflection of the computer light against the wall. Then, from the laptop, the woman's voice again. Fainter this time. She doesn't belong here. The screen flickered violently, filling with static. For half a second, I saw what looked like a burned living room, blackened walls, a collapsed ceiling, and a single wooden chair still upright in the middle. Then the image vanished. The call disconnected. The screen went black. I stood there, shaking, every muscle in my body locked. Then my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed unknown number. I answered without thinking. Silence. Then a whisper. He's gone now. It was a woman's voice, soft, almost kind. Who is this? I said. She didn't answer. Then she whispered. You shouldn't have answered him. He doesn't know he's dead. My stomach turned. Who are you? I was his wife, she said. Margaret. A long pause. Did he call you from the fire? My voice trembled. He called me last night. He called for my desk number. She made a sound, something between a sigh and a sob. He still thinks it's the night of the fire. He keeps calling, hoping someone will pick up. He can't tell the difference anymore. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Why me? Because you stayed on the line, she said softly. You stayed too long. I felt my heart pounding in my throat. Every time he finds you, she said, it pulls him back. You bring him closer. And then, just like him, she said, you shouldn't have answered. The line cut. I threw the phone onto the bed and backed away. My breathing was sharp, shallow. The room felt wrong, tilted somehow, like the floor wasn't quite straight anymore. Then my laptop turned on again. No sound this time, just a blank, glowing screen. A message appeared in the middle of it. Incoming ringback. Accept? I stared at it, paralyzed. Ringback meant the system was reconnecting a previous call, but that function was disabled outside the dispatch network. I waited. The message flashed again. Incoming ringback. Accept? I reached out, hand trembling. The cursor moved on its own, slowly drifting toward the accept button. I tried to pull my hand away, but my fingers twitched, clicking down. The screen went black. Then, faintly, I heard breathing. My breathing, followed by a recorded voice, my own, playing from the speakers. Dispatch, this is Natalie. What's your emergency? Then Edward's reply, calm as ever. Ah, good evening, young lady. I hope I'm not disturbing you. But the tone was different this time. Slower, colder, almost like he was right behind me, whispering the words into my ear. I turned, but there was nothing there, only the faint smell of smoke. When I looked back at the screen, my reflection was gone. Just the chair, the monitors, the headset, empty, and somewhere through the static, Edward's voice spoke one last time. Don't hang up. I think she's finally home. The sound faded, leaving only the faint echo of the swing again. Back and forth, back and forth. I shut the laptop and pulled the plug from the wall. But even now, when my phone vibrates at night, I can hear it before I even look. That faint, impossible tone. That polite voice waiting for me to answer. And sometimes, when I don't, it rings anyway. My first month as a dispatcher felt like living inside a clock. Every tick another voice, another emergency, another second of someone else's life falling apart. The room never truly slept. The monitors hummed, the fluorescent lights buzzed, and the smell of burnt coffee lived in the carpet. They told me it takes a while to get used to the silence between calls. They didn't tell me that silence could sound alive. It started on a Thursday night, mid-shift, almost midnight. The rain outside was so heavy that it sounded like static against the windows. The rest of the crew had gone for their break, leaving me alone with 20 empty desks and the soft glow of the switchboard. Then I heard it, a faint ring. It wasn't from the main lines. The tone was different, lower, slower, older. I checked my panel. Nothing was flashing. It came again, one long tone, from somewhere behind me. I turned toward the back of the room. There was a hallway there, leading down to the basement offices, locked since before I joined. Everyone called it the drowned floor. Years ago, a pipe burst and flooded the entire level. They sealed it off instead of fixing it. Supposedly all the old equipment was still down there, rusted and dead. But that ring, it was coming from below. I told myself it was the pipes, or maybe interference from the storm. Still, I stood up, headset dangling from my neck, and followed the sound. The stairwell smelled like wet dust. Each step creaked under my shoes, echoing too loud in the narrow space. The deeper I went, the colder it got. By the time I reached the steel door at the bottom, the sound had stopped. There was only the drip of water somewhere behind it. The door was supposed to be sealed, but the padlock hung open, old and orange with rust, as if someone had snapped it and put it back to look locked. I should have gone back upstairs, but I didn't. I pushed the door open. The air that came out was thick and stale, like the inside of a wet towel. My flashlight beam caught bits of paper floating in puddles, old desks half buried in debris. The walls were streaked with mold, and the ceiling sagged where water had warped the tiles. And then, faintly, somewhere in the dark, the phone rang again. This time, I could tell exactly where it came from. A single light glowed in the far corner, a tiny red bulb on an old rotary phone sitting on a desk. It rang once more, then stopped, as if waiting. I walked toward it slowly, every splash echoing off the walls. When I got close enough, I saw that the phone wasn't connected to anything. The cord hung loose, cut clean. I stared at it for a full minute, then it rang again. I jumped back. The sound filled the whole room, muffled yet sharp, like it was coming from inside my chest. My hand shook as I picked up the receiver. Dispatch, I said, voice trembling. This is Jordan. How can I help you? Static hissed in my ear. Then a voice, soft, distant, like someone talking through water. Is this the station? I swallowed hard. Why, yeah. Who is this? A pause. Then, I was calling from downstairs, but the lights went out. I can't find the door. My grip tightened. Downstairs where? Here, the voice said. The lower office. The basement. My stomach dropped. There's no one down here, I said quietly. This floor's been closed for years. The voice didn't react. I called hours ago. No one answered. The phones keep ringing. Who are you? The static deepened. Beneath it, I thought I heard something else, a faint dripping sound, steady and close to the receiver. Then the voice whispered, the water's rising again. The line went dead. I stood there, listening to my own breathing. The red light on the phone blinked twice, then faded out. I put the receiver down and backed away. The air smelled stronger now, metallic, like wet iron. When I turned toward the door, I saw a trail on the floor, a thin line of water, winding through the dust like something had just been dragged across it. I didn't wait to find out what it was. I ran back up the stairs, shut the door, and locked it tight. By the time the others returned from their break, I was back at my desk, pretending nothing had happened. I didn't tell them, but all night, I kept hearing that ring in the back of my mind. The next day, I asked our supervisor if anyone had gone down to the basement recently. She gave me a strange look. No one's allowed down there, Jordan. Didn't you read the report? The electrical system's still flooded. I nodded, pretending to understand. But when she walked away, I checked the maintenance logs anyway. The last recorded entry was dated August 17, 1997, exactly 28 years ago. The note said, final evacuation, one employee unaccounted for. No name, no follow-up, just that line. That night, when the rain returned, I was already on edge. Every drop against the windows sounded like that same muffled ring. Around 11:45, the lights flickered once. Then line 3 on my board lit up. The label under was faded, barely legible, basement comm. I hesitated, then answered. Dispatch, this is Jordan. For a moment, only static. Then the same voice, calm and quiet. You came back. My hands went cold. Who is this? It's so dark down here, they said. The water is up to my knees. I can't find the stairs. I glanced toward the hallway. The door to the stairwell was closed, but I could swear I heard a faint dripping on the other side. Listen, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There's no one down there. You need to tell me your name. I told the last dispatcher. The voice murmured. He said he'd call back, but he never did. My chest tightened. When was that? During the flood, they said, simply, the phones wouldn't stop ringing. We couldn't get out. The line crackled, then went quiet. Hello. I whispered. Nothing. Then, faintly, I heard it through the static, the sound of water sloshing. And beneath it, a second voice whispering, pick up the line. I slammed the receiver down. The board went dark, but I could still hear it, the faint ring from somewhere below my feet. The next morning, the janitor found water pooling at the bottom of the stairwell. He said it smelled like rust and old paper. I didn't tell him what I'd heard. They drained it by noon. The maintenance team said it was just a burst pipe. But that night, when I came in for my shift, I noticed a new line added to the dispatch list. Lower office, active. I stared at it for a long time. Then I unplugged my headset, shut off my monitor, and told myself I'd quit tomorrow. But before I could leave, the phone on my desk rang once. A single, low tone, too deep to be one of ours. I froze. Then I realized it wasn't my phone ringing. It was the one under the floor. The sound traveled through the vents, vibrating up through the tiles like a heartbeat. Ring. Pause. Ring. I backed toward the door, every instinct screaming to get out. But right before I reached it, my monitor flickered to life. An incoming call notification appeared across the screen. Source: Basement Comm, extension 0001. And below that, a name. Caller ID, Jordan M. My own name. The screen pulsed once, like it was breathing. Then the call auto-connected. A voice filled my headset. My voice, "Dispatch, this is Jordan. What's your emergency?" I couldn't move. From the other end came the same quiet tone, the same words I'd heard before. The water is rising again. And then, faintly, the sound of phone ringing beneath my feet, back and forth, until the light on my board went out. Now, every time it rains, I swear I can hear it again. A single ring coming from the ground floor, waiting for me to pick up. I've always liked the quiet of the night shift. There's a rhythm to it, a pulse you get used to after a few months. The hum of monitors, the soft beep of incoming lines, the occasional shout from someone panicking on the other end. It's like listening to a city's heartbeat from inside a coffin. That night, I was almost alone. My partner had called in sick. The janitor was on his break, and the office felt larger than usual, stretched with silence. Even the fluorescent lights seemed dimmer, flickering with a tired pulse that made the walls sway slightly if you stared long enough. I had just started sorting through the overdue call logs when I heard it. At first, I thought it was static, white noise from one of the old headsets left plugged in, but the static had a rhythm, a cadence, almost like someone was speaking underneath it. I frowned and leaned closer to the headset, adjusting the volume. Unit 3, respond on Pine Street. Fire spreading west side. Estimated 10 minutes. The voice was clear, calm, professional, old, too old. I froze. The phrasing, the clipped tones, the way it trailed off at the end of the sentence. It was familiar. I checked the dispatch board. There was no call on Pine Street tonight. Not a single incident. Then the static whispered again. Unit 5, call canceled. Repeat, call canceled. Advise on alternate route. I sat back slowly, my pulse quickening. The voice didn't belong to anyone working tonight. Not anyone alive, at least. It was the way my supervisor used to sound. She retired 10 years ago, long before I ever set foot in this office. I knew the tone, the cadence, every sigh and pause. Then another voice joined, male this time. Clear, deliberate, clipped in the exact way the old dispatcher used to bark instructions. Pine Street, east side. Confirmed. Check hydrants before entry. Over. I gripped my headset. My eyes scanned the office. Empty. Every monitor, every line. Nothing. I told myself it was a trick of the mind. The office is old. The wiring is ancient. Maybe the storm outside was causing interference. That made sense. It had to. Then the female voice returned. Unit 3, do not enter east side. Structural collapse reported. Over. I shivered. I knew that report. Not from tonight. That was decades old. The collapse had happened 30 years ago. The night the basement flooded. The night they sealed the lower floor. I had read the old files once. Long ago, before I knew what it felt like to hear a person die over a headset. But these voices weren't reporting old events. They were reporting tonight's emergencies. The words were precise, real-time, as if the office itself were replaying history mixed with the present. I fumbled with the headset, trying to unplug it. Nothing happened. The sound continued, flowing through every speaker in the room. The hum of the computers, the vents overhead, it all carried their voices. Unit 7, Elm Street flooding. Reported basement rising. Evacuate immediately. My throat went dry. Elm Street. That was the flooded floor. The lower offices. The part of the building sealed for years. I stood slowly, heart hammering, and approached the old wall phone. The receiver was off the hook, even though no one had touched it. The dial tone hummed low and steady, and through it came the voices. Evacuation advised. Repeat, evacuation advised. Basement compromised. Over. I could hear the water dripping, not from the pipes, not from the ceiling. It was soft at first, then louder. Drip, drip, drip. Each beat synchronized with the voices. Each word carried weight, urgency. I pressed my hand to the wall, steadying myself. My skin prickled as if something unseen was brushing against me. My mouth went dry. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Not yet. Then a faint, familiar laugh echoed through the speakers. It was the old night manager, the one everyone said never left the building, even after retirement. They said he walked the floors at night, checking the lines, checking the logs. I thought it was a joke, but the laugh was unmistakable. Unit 3, check stairwell C. There's movement. Could be a breach. The voice said, clipped and calm. I couldn't move. My own reflection stared back at me from the darkened monitors. My eyes were wide, my hands shaking. Every instinct screamed to leave. Then another sound joined. The typing. Not from me. Not from anyone. The clatter of keys in the lower office, echoing through the vents. Slow, deliberate, methodical. Someone typing reports. Someone logging incidents. My blood ran cold. Basement compromised. Evacuate all personnel. Confirm arrival, said another voice, deeper this time, male, authoritative, sharp with command. The words were wrong. They were right. I couldn't tell if I was hearing them through the headset or inside my own skull. I forced myself to speak. Who's there? Who is this? The voices didn't respond directly. They continued reporting, ignoring me as if I were invisible. Unit 5, call cleared. No injuries reported. Over. Unit 3, structural integrity check failed. Over. I backed toward the door. My foot hit the desk, knocking over a coffee cup. It shattered, black liquid spreading across the floor. I didn't care. I just needed to get out. Then one voice closer now, almost in my ear. You shouldn't be here. Over. I froze. My heart felt like it was hammering inside my throat. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I glanced toward the hallway, toward the stairwell. The door to the lower offices, sealed, locked, was ajar. A sliver of darkness glimmered, as if the building itself were breathing. The voices overlapped now. Male, female, old, younger. The cacophony of decades mixing together. Unit 7, repeat, basement compromised. Evacuate immediately. Over. Unit 3, check south corridor. Smoke detected. Over. Unit 5, confirm water level. Over. Every word felt real. Every instruction felt alive. I ran to the door, tried to close it, but the handle felt icy. My fingers slipped. The door swung slowly open, inviting me in, beckoning. Unit 3, you are late. Over, said the old female dispatcher, her tone sharper now, impatient. I stepped back, tripping over a chair. My headset fell, tangled around my legs. I scrambled to free myself, my heart racing, my ears ringing with voices from a past I should never have touched. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. I stood there, chest heaving, and listened. The monitors were dead. The office was quiet. No static. No typing. No dripping. I took a deep breath, telling myself it was over. Just fatigue. Just wires. Old lines, interference. My imagination. And then, faintly, almost too quiet to hear, it started again. Unit 7, Elm Street flooding. Basement rising. Evacuate immediately. Over. I froze. The voice was real. Too real. And beneath it, faint but undeniable, I heard the clatter of typewriter keys coming from below, from the sealed basement. I didn't know if I was in a faint or scream. I backed away slowly, never taking my eyes off the stairwell door. I wanted to leave. I had to leave. But the voices were relentless, reporting, instructing, warning, feeding off the space I occupied, as if they knew I was listening, as if they needed me to hear every word. Unit 3, check stairwell C. There's movement. Could be a breach. The female voice whispered again, this time so close I could feel it brush against my neck. I stumbled backward, crashing into the wall. My headset skidded across the floor. The voices didn't stop. Unit 5, confirm water level. Over. Unit 7, evacuate immediately. Over. Basement compromised. Evacuate all personnel. Confirm arrival. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my feet felt rooted to the carpet. My ears were full of decades-old voices, reporting emergencies that weren't supposed to exist, instructions for crises that never happened. And then I realized I could hear footsteps. Not mine, not upstairs. Below, in the flooded, sealed basement. Coming closer. The typing resumed, faster now. Urgent. The voices overlapped, overlapping my own heartbeat, drowning it out. I grabbed the phone on my desk, the headset, anything, and ran toward the exit. The door slammed behind me. I didn't look back. The office was empty again. The storm outside continued to lash against the windows. But inside, silence. I didn't sleep that night. Every shadow seemed to move. Every hum of the fluorescent lights a whisper. Every creak in the floor a warning. I know I should have reported it, told someone. But who would believe me? Voices from the past guided me with real-time updates on emergencies that weren't real, and I know they're still there. Sometimes, late at night, when the office is quiet and the storm rages outside, I can still hear them. Unit 7, Elm Street flooding. Basement rising. Evacuate immediately. Over. Back and forth. Back and forth. And I know if I ever go back, they'll be waiting for me. I've worked enough night shifts to know the pattern. A sudden silence, a flicker in the lights, a feeling that the building itself is holding its breath. You start to notice in the smallest details. How the hum of the monitors changes when a storm hits, how the smell of the carpet seems sharper, almost wet, even when it's dry. That night, the storm was worse than usual. The rain drummed against the windows like hundreds of impatient fingers, pounding on the roof and bouncing into the empty streets outside. My headset sat heavy on my shoulders, the monitors casting their pale glow across the dark office. I had just finished logging the last call when the lights flickered once, then twice, and then everything went black. Total darkness. My heart jumped. The hum of the computers died. The monitors went dead. Even the emergency lights failed. A storm blackout, I thought. Normal, I told myself. Happens all the time during heavy rain. I reached my phone, but the battery was low, almost dead. Only one thing caught my eye, a faint red glow coming from somewhere below. The basement. The stairwell leading to the lower offices was dark, but the red glow pulsed softly, calling me. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, maybe an old light, some reflection of a monitor left on a UPS. Rational explanations, but the urge to check it, to see why it was there, was too strong. I grabbed a flashlight from the supply closet. The beam cut through the dark like a knife. Every step toward the stairwell made the floorboards groan. The rain outside beat against the walls, mingling with a faint drip, drip, drip that seemed to be coming from below. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, the smell hit me first. Wet metallic, the unmistakable scent of water and rust. My flashlight caught the stairwell door, a steel slab that had been welded shut for decades. Yet here it was, slightly ajar, the faint red glow spilling through the crack. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The basement was submerged. Dark water pooled across the entire floor, still and black, reflecting the faint red lights like blood in the night. The desks, the old rotary phones, the chairs, they all sat half submerged, twisted in the water. And the phones, they were glowing. Every single receiver, every single line. The tiny red lights pulsing through the water, connected to nothing, alive somehow in the dark flood. I could hear them softly ringing, one after the other, but the sound was distorted, muffled beneath the water. The closer I got, the louder they seemed, like something beneath the surface was trying to speak through them. I reached out with my hand. The water was icy, and it sent a shock straight at my arm. My fingers brushed the phone, and the ringing stopped for just a second, enough to make my skin crawl. Then it started again, louder this time, vibrating against the water, resonating through the concrete floor. I picked up one of the receivers. The cord had long since rotted, dangling in the water like seaweed. I held it to my ear. Static, then a voice. Soft, calm, professional. Almost familiar. Unit 3. Respond on Elm Street. Water rising. Evacuate immediately. Over. I swallowed. Elm Street. That was the flooded basement. This is dispatch. I stammered, my voice trembling in the darkness. Who's calling? Static again. Then, Unit 5 confirmed. Basement compromised. Over. I froze. These weren't random calls. They weren't automated. They were instructions, updates, warnings. Real-time alerts about emergencies happening in this very building. I dropped the receiver. It floated in the water, still glowing faintly. Another phone lit up. I picked it up. Unit 7, repeat. Basement compromised. Evacuate immediately. Over. The water rippled. Beneath it, I thought I saw a movement. Something shifting in the darkness. Just below the surface. Just out of reach. I took a step back. The beam from my flashlight shook, glinting off something reflective. An old badge, a chair leg, a desk lamp submerged, all distorted in the dark water. I could hear it then, faint behind the ringing, typing, clicking, like someone was logging the events as they happened. Invisible fingers dancing across a keyboard beneath the water. I wanted to turn and leave. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to go, but something rooted me there, staring at the glowing phones. I could see faces and reflections. Old staff members who had long retired or passed away. Their reflections flickered in the water, watching me, waiting. Who's there? I whispered, voice barely carrying above the hum of the storm. The voices continued, ignoring me, clear, authoritative, clipped in the old way dispatchers used to speak. Unit 3, stairwell C compromised. Do not enter. Over. Unit 5, check structural integrity. Confirm evacuation. Over. I swallowed. My chest was tight. My flashlight flickered. The water lapped higher, as if responding to the voices. I stepped back, almost tripping over a submerged chair, and the water whispered against my ankles. One voice, softer this time, closer. You shouldn't be here. Over. My head snapped toward the sound. There was nothing visible, only the faint glow, the submerged phones, the echoes of commands and warnings layered over each other. I realized then, they weren't speaking to each other. They were speaking to me, the old staff, decades gone, giving updates, guiding me through emergencies I had no right to be a part of. Why are you here? I whispered. No answer. Just the rhythmic pulsing of the red lights beneath the water. The ringing phones repeating, looping, urgent. Unit 7, confirm water rising. Basement compromised. Evacuate immediately. Over. I shivered. The water reflected their voices, as if it carried their words from a past and present. The water lapped higher against my knees. Each pulse of red light seemed like a heartbeat. I wanted to leave. I had to leave. But when I turned toward the stairs, the beam of my flashlight caught a desk that hadn't been submerged before. Someone sitting there, just a shadow outlined by the red glow of the phones. I froze. Not human. Not quite. Just a shape. Watching. Waiting. I forced my legs to move. Step by step, I backed toward the stairwell, flashlight trembling in my hand. The water reached my thighs. Each step sent ripples across the submerged phones, sending their lights pulsing violently. The ringing intensified, overlapping, echoing. I reached the stairwell. My fingers found a cold metal railing. I gripped it, but the water tugged at me, sticky, resisting. Every instinct screamed at me to climb, but I couldn't let go. Then one voice, loud and clear, cutting through all the chaos. Evacuate. Now. It wasn't coming from the phones. It wasn't coming from the water. It was inside my head. A command. Sharp. Insistent. I kicked off the submerged floor and started climbing the stairs. Water sloshed over each step, soaking my clothes, pulling at my shoes. The ringing followed me, echoing up the stairwell. Every pulse of red light behind me felt like a hand tried to drag me back down. I reached the top, slammed the door shut, and leaned against it, gasping for air. My clothes were drenched, my hair plastered to my face. The office was dark, silent again, except for the storm pounding outside. I sank to the floor, trying to collect myself. My heart still raced. The red glow, the submerged phones, the voices, they were gone. Or maybe just hidden, waiting. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? Time felt wrong. The storm had passed, but I couldn't move. I couldn't think straight. Finally, I stood and checked the dispatch board. No incoming calls. No notifications. Everything normal. But I knew it wasn't normal. The basement, the drowned floor was alive. Not with water or electricity, but with them. The old staff, still giving instructions, still watching. Waiting for someone to answer the phones. Waiting for someone to listen. And I know they are still there. Sometimes at night, when the storm hits and the lights flicker, I can hear them faintly, through the walls, through the vents, through the thin line of reality between now and then. Unit 7. Confirmed water rising. Basement compromised. Evacuate immediately. Over. Back and forth. Back and forth. And I know one day I might have to go back down there. I never used to mind staying late at the station. The quiet was almost comforting. The phone stopped ringing. The chatter died down, and the soft hum of the fluorescent lights became the only sound left. It was like the building itself exhaled after a long day. That night, I told myself I'd only stay another half hour. I had one report left to finish. My final report before I transferred out. After 5 years as a 911 dispatcher, I was done. The burnout, the nightmares, the constant voices of people in their worst moments. It had worn me thin. But the report wasn't just any call. It was the one from last week, the one that had kept me awake every night since. The room felt heavier than usual as I sat back down at my desk. Most of the overhead lights were off, leaving only a dim pool of light around my workstation. The screens cast a cold blue glow across the desk, washing out everything else. My coffee was cold. The clock read 11:47 p.m., and I told myself again, just 30 more minutes. I pulled up the system, typed in my ID, and waited for the call logs to load. The cursor blinked. The database hummed. Then the list appeared, line by line. Every call I'd handled in the last month. I scrolled down until I found it. Case hashtag 4472A, unknown caller, disconnected. I hesitated before clicking it. Even now, I could hear the faint echo of her voice. Please, there's someone in the house. It had been faint, whispery, almost drowned out by static. No address, no background sound to trace. Then the line had gone dead. We never found her. That was what I was supposed to finalize. A non-locatable distress call. One of those cases that just ended in nothing. But the thing was, it hadn't felt like nothing. It had felt personal. Like she had been whispering to me. The cursor blinked again. I opened the file and froze because there were 2 call entries under my name. One was mine, the one I remembered. The second one was time-stamped for 2 nights ago. Same case number. Same caller ID. Same note, disconnected. But I hadn't been at work 2 nights ago. My first thought was that someone had logged in under my credentials. That happens sometimes, people forgetting to sign out. But when I opened the file, my stomach twisted. The call transcript was there. My name was listed, and the text read exactly as if I'd typed it myself. 11:58 p.m. dispatcher, Mara L. 911, what's your emergency? 11:58 p.m. caller, whispering, she's still here. 11:58 p.m. dispatcher, who is? 11:58 p.m. caller, you should have helped me. The rest of the log was blank. No disconnect time. No notes. I stared at it for a long time, my chest tightening. The system automatically timestamps everything, even if someone forgets to save. The software logs keystrokes. But this one didn't. I right-clicked to see the metadata. The entry had no system ID, no save location, no signature hash. Like it wasn't real. But it was sitting right there under my name. I rubbed my temples. The logical part of my brain started listing possibilities. Glitch, internal error, test data. But the other part, the one that hadn't been able to sleep since that night, whispered something else. What if it was her, the woman from the call, the one who had never been found? I tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. My throat was dry. The fluorescent lights flickered softly above me, buzzing in uneven pulses. I clicked back to the main list, and that's when I saw it. There were more unsent call transcripts. 4 of them, all under my name, all from the past week. And every single one had the same caller ID. I opened the second one. 12:03 a.m. dispatcher, Mara L. 911, what's your emergency? 12:03 a.m. caller. She keeps watching me. 12:03 a.m. dispatcher. Who's watching you? 12:03 a.m. caller. You know who? I felt a chill run through me. The voice in the log. I could almost hear it again in my head. Faint, trembling, close enough to feel her breath on the other end. I scrolled further down. The third transcript was the same. 12:09 a.m. dispatcher. Where are you calling from? 12:09 a.m. Caller. Somewhere you left me. I pushed away from the desk, my chair squeaking in the silence. The sound startled me. It was too loud, too sharp against the stillness of the empty room. Okay, I muttered to myself, this is just some kind of system mirror bug. I reached for the phone to call IT, but the line was dead, just a low hum of static. The screen flickered. Then another transcript appeared, one that hadn't been there seconds ago. 12:17 a.m. dispatcher. 911. What's your emergency? 12:17 a.m. Caller. Why did you hang up? I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The clock on the wall said 12:17 a.m. That wasn't possible. I hadn't typed anything. I hadn't touched the system. Yet it had just logged a live timestamp. My timestamp. And then, as I stared, new words appeared on the screen. Slowly, one by one. 12:17 a.m. Caller. Look behind you. The room went absolutely silent. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade. I didn't move. My hands trembled on the desk, fingertips cold. I could feel my pulse in my throat. My eyes flicked toward the reflection on the computer screen. The faint blur of my own silhouette against the blue light. Nothing. I turned around anyway. The hallway outside my cubicle was empty. Rows of vacant desks, dark monitors, and that awful, flickering fluorescent light near the end. I turned back to the screen. The log had updated again. 12:18 a.m. caller. Too slow. Something in me cracked then, some fragile thread of reason. I shut down the screen, slammed the lid of the terminal, and whispered to myself, it's a prank. Someone's messing with me. But the voice in my head, the one that had been whispering since that night, said otherwise. It said, she's still trying to be heard. I stood, grabbed my bag, and tried to shake off the feeling. My shoes squeaked faintly against the linoleum as I walked toward the exit. Halfway down the hallway, the overhead lights began turning off one by one behind me. Click, click, click. My pace quickened. When I reached the security door, I swiped my card, but the red light flashed. Denied. I swiped again. Nothing. The lights kept going out. Closer now. I could hear the faint creak of the building settling. Or maybe something else. A soft shifting sound, like someone moving just out of sight. Come on. I whispered, fumbled the card again. Finally, the light turned green. The lock clicked. I pushed through the door, slamming it shut behind me. I leaned against the cold metal, my breath coming fast. The lobby was dark too, except for the faint glow from the vending machine. I looked back through the glass door. All the lights were off now, except one at my desk. The monitor was on again, glowing in the dark. And on the screen, I could just barely make out the last line of text before the system went black. 12:19 a.m. caller. You heard me this time. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember anything after walking to my car. I must have done it automatically, like sleepwalking. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was already high, and my uniform was still on. My phone buzzed beside me. A message from my supervisor. Hey, Mara, I saw you logged in last night after hours. Did you finish your report? My heart sank. I hadn't told anyone I was staying late. I opened my laptop and logged into the dispatch system from home. My call logs were gone. Every single entry from the past week had been wiped. The only thing left was a single note at the bottom of the dashboard. System notice. Final report closed by user Mara L. But the timestamp was 12:19 a.m. The same moment she said I'd heard her. I never went back to the station after that. Sometimes, late at night, when my phone buzzes, I see an unknown caller flash across the screen. I never answer it. But once, just once, I let it ring through. And even through the voicemail's distortion, I could hear it. That same whisper. Please, there's someone in the house. Only this time, it sounded like my own voice. The night started like any other, quiet but heavy, with that low hum of the station filling every corner of the room. The air smelled faintly of stale coffee and printer ink. I told myself I would just finish this one last shift, check the logs, file my final reports, and go home. But something about that night felt different. I had been at the desk for hours, the glow of the monitors painting my face in cold blues and grays. I could hear the soft shuffle of papers in the room next to mine and the distant, irregular hum of the AC. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tired but restless. My eyes kept flicking to clock. 3:56 a.m. 4 more minutes. Just 4 more. I should have been grateful for the silence. Instead, it pressed on me like a weight, pushing my thoughts into corners I've been trying to ignore, about the calls that never ended, the voices I could still hear when the lights went out, about her, the one from the last week, the one I never found. I sipped my coffee, but it had gone cold again. I could taste the bitterness, almost sharp enough to make me gag. I shook my head, trying to shake off the unease curling in my stomach. It had been a long week, and I needed the caffeine just to keep going. 3:58 a.m. The room was too quiet. I started scrolling through the line logs just to distract myself. Nothing unusual, at least not at first. Then I noticed that every line was blinking faintly, a subtle, almost imperceptible rhythm. My fingers froze on the keyboard. I wasn't supposed to see activity on lines that were idle this late. 3:59 a.m. The blinking became brighter. I leaned in closer. My eyes ached under the glow of the monitors. My throat tightened. Something about the rhythm wasn't random. It was deliberate. Then the clock struck 4 a.m., and every line lit up at once. All 24 of them, bright, insistent, like a sudden, electric heartbeat across the room. I couldn't move. My hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling. My own voice stuck somewhere in my chest, muted and panicked. A tone hummed softly through the headsets, the kind you hear before a call connects. And then, one by one, the voices came. Mara, the first line, whispered, soft, deliberate. My skin prickled, every hair standing on end. Mara, the second line, clearer this time, insistent. Mara, the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, all at once. I pressed my hands to my ears, trying to block it out, but it was everywhere, in my head, in the room, in the glow of the monitors, reflected off the walls and the ceiling and the polished linoleum floor. I stumbled back in my chair, heart hammering. The phones weren't just ringing, they were calling me. Every voice on the other end said only one thing, and all of them said it at once. My name. I couldn't think. My mind raced in desperate circles. Logical explanations flashed. Prank, malfunction, some kind of server glitch. But deep down, I knew none of those would make the voices so intimate, so personal. I forced myself to breathe. 1, 2, 3, but the rhythm of the calls didn't let me calm down. Every time I tried to focus on something else, another voice echoed my name, soft, almost like it was right behind me. I gripped the edge of the desk, nails digging into the wood. My breath came in short, uneven bursts. My vision blurred from the fear and exhaustion. Who's there? I whispered, my voice trembling. Silence. Then, through the static and hum, I heard it, faint at first. A voice I knew, not one of the lines this time, not from the phones. From somewhere else. Please. I froze. My heart stopped. That voice. Her voice. From the call that never ended. From the logs that didn't exist. From the moment I tried to shut out and failed. Please. It was closer now. Somewhere inside my chest. In my head. I couldn't tell if it was real or if I was losing it. But I couldn't move. My fingers were stiff on the desk. My ears ringing with 24 calls screaming my name, all layered over her whisper. I grabbed a headset, yanking it over my ears. I had to hear what they were saying, had to understand. 911, what's your emergency? I said, my voice shaking. The line was silent for a long, agonizing moment. Then a chorus of whispers. She's here. You left me. You can't stop her. Mara. All of them. At once. I slammed the headset down, heart racing so fast, I thought it would burst. I couldn't stay. I had to leave. I shoved my chair back and ran for the door. My shoes screeched against the floor, echoing through the empty station. I grabbed my coat, fumbling with the zipper, trying not to look at the monitors, but I couldn't stop my eye from flicking over. The lines were still lit. The names weren't there anymore. Just numbers. Just blinking lights. But I knew. I could feel it. That same presence stretching across the room, filling every corner. I reached the security door and swiped my card. Denied. My fingers shook as I swiped again. Still denied. Come on. I whispered, voice cracking. Come on, come on. Finally, green. The lock clicked. I pushed the door open and ran down the hall. The lights flickered behind me, one by one, and I swear I could hear whispers following me. I made it to the lobby and leaned against the wall, chest heaving. The vending machine light glowed faintly. The main doors were locked automatically for after-hour security, but my badge opened them. I shoved them open and stumbled into the cold night air. I didn't look back. I drove home with my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles hurt. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't even think about what would happen if someone followed me. All I could hear was my name, echoing in my mind. I made it inside my apartment, locked the door, and sank to the floor. My phone buzzed, a message from the station. All lines down after 4 a.m. shift closed automatically. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Hours passed. I stayed on the floor, knees to my chest, rocking slightly. Every time I thought I'd fallen asleep, I woke with the echo of her voice, faint but insistent. Mara, Mara. By morning, I was trembling. I forced myself to stand, to shower, to eat something. I didn't sleep again that day. Not really. When I logged into the system later, everything looked normal. No logs, no anomalies, no blinking lines, no whispered names. But I knew what had happened. I knew, and deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Because every time I close my eyes, I can still hear her voice, calling my name, waiting.